Graham Platner for Senate. He's a combat veteran, Marines and Army, okay? Friend of the working Mainer, foe of the oligarchy, husband, candidate for U.S. Senate. This guy is running for U.S. Senate, anti-Zionist, very progressive, has all of the progressive bona fides, okay? I'm going to look a little bit deeper into his campaign. I haven't like fully analyzed it, but and I'm going to link up with him and do some with him as well. I've been hurt before, okay? I advocated for one ogre, and I need to really see what his background looks like, okay? But he's already being presented as Maine's own Zoran. Yeah, progressive mind in a MAGA body. Progressive mind in an Aryan Brotherhood body. Look, I don't give a fuck what someone's background is. You guys know this. I am agnostic to the optics. I do not care. You can be a 33-year-old brown Muslim dude who is a socialist. You can be the type of dude that looks like he's a tier 1 operator going on the Sean Ryan podcast to talk about how, you know, he was door kicking in Fallujah. All right. As long as what's coming out of your mouth and the values that you believe align with mine, I'm there for you. Okay. It don't matter. America's an incredibly fucking diverse country. That's it.
I did 4 infantry tours in the Marine Corps and the Army. I'll
be honest, I don't really like how much you fucking post that as well, but I guess that's for election stuff. Democrats love a veteran, okay? They love a veteran. Okay, having said that, there are left flank vets out there, and this guy seems to be one of them, okay? There are also a lot of neoliberal Air Force guys and gals who are like a lot of neolib Air Force veterans who love talking about like, I killed children. He's not really doing that. I don't know how this will read to people in general, because he is like, he does look the part. He is very, he is very grunt force. I totally understand why a lot of people see a swagged out white boy geared up, looking like a grunt force tier 1 operator, and immediately think of John Fetty Wapman. Okay, I get it. We've been burned before. And I understand it. You just, like I said, only time will tell. Yeah, this is John Betterman. Okay. The reason why I'm warm to this guy is because of who he has surrounded himself with. Okay. His team, from what I have seen, is fairly solid. It's good to be critical and make an assessment off of like everything that they're communicating. I'm not just running against Susan Collins. I'm running against the billionaire class that owns her and all of Washington. Even if this is like fake posturing, it's good that there is this kind of messaging coming out. This should be the thing that Democrats are fucking screaming from the mountaintops, okay? Targeting billionaires who are unimaginably powerful figures, but their numbers are minuscule, okay, in comparison to the 99% of Americans, is good. I think a guy like this could just like very easily also take a strong anti-war position, given his background, to be like, I don't think we should be doing any of these fucking wars at all. I think it's a jobs program, and it's utterly ridiculous how much we are destroying the next generation so that they can get a leg up. I call it now. This white guy's not a real one. I know that everybody wants to be right. I do not fault you for being cynical. Having said that, he has a lot of decent people around him. Though he's a political newcomer, Platner has said he's brought on board 2 progressive strategists who have experience successfully running against establishment-favored Democrats: Maurice Katz, a top ad maker for New York City Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani, and Joe Calvello, a former senior aide to John Fetterman. Joe's a good dude. Okay, don't hear the John Fetterman thing and then immediately assume he's a bad guy. Former Fetterman guy, okay? That's not a red flag. Former. It's not Joe Calvello's fault that John Fetty Wapman got hit with the pro-Israel stroke gun, okay? It doesn't matter what people fucking call themselves. What matters is what they advocate for, okay? And this guy has got good policies, okay? Turn off the fucking liberal brain that causes you to lead by fear. Liberals need to stop being fucking cowards.
Do not bring back Roe v. Wade.
You're really showing a guy on stream that did 5 Iraq tours? Do you not give a fuck about Arab lives after all you've done? Yes, I don't. I don't. That's what it is. That must be it.
For the role of United States Senator.
The bad banana viewers are already here pre-mad. I don't know how you do this with so many idiots. I've been doing this my whole career. Who gives a shit? This doesn't mean. Look, I'm looking at what he's saying.
Better than Susan Collins.
I understand that many of us have been burned before.
And Maine deserves an alternative.
There's no reason to immediately assume that this is another Fetterman clone. It can be the case. Bro. I'm sorry. I'm not doing this whole thing with like leftists who just genuinely come in here and they go, look, man, I'm mentally ill and you need to abide by my standards right now. Okay? Calm down. Okay? I didn't say that his 5 tours, even his 5 tours is not even the major issue here, even though that is an issue. The actual issue is the fact that he also worked with private contractors. Okay? We'll see. We'll see where it goes. On the opposite side, it's like seemingly there is a movement for more populist left-wing candidates that are running. And I will always put a leftist ass in a seat if I can. If you notice, he's running on a platform of wanting to kill more Iraqi children. Have you guys noticed that? That's what he keeps saying over and over again. Why is Graham Platner running for Senate instead of just sitting around in my Twitch chat talking about how everyone is actually bad and wrong? I think we're banning all mentions of bad empanada going forward, by the way. We're banning mods. We should ban all mentions of bad empanada, and we should purge the community of all the bad empanada enjoyers. No, it's done. I don't give a shit. Okay? I don't care. Go watch him then. Okay? He has sound critique and sound analysis. Go watch him, please. Why? Because his loyalists are so unimaginably annoying. It doesn't make him entirely wrong, man. There needs to be some kind of reckoning with the fact that someone's actual past is a killer. Okay, there you go. Once again, there are valid concerns to have here. 100%. But if you're shutting yourself off from even analyzing the situation, interpreting it on your own because you listen to an Argentinian dude or you listen to an Australian dude living in Argentina and his assessment of it, and just you're repeating the talking points in here, then you're not engaging in any sort of real critique. When I look at these sorts of developments, I look at it from the frame of what the broader government and their attitude is on these sorts of issues. This person is above and beyond aligned with at least the way he's communicated himself so far. This person is far above and beyond the expectations of like a Pete Buttigieg or whatever the establishment's trying to present. Would America be in a better situation overall if it was if we had 100 Graham Platners as opposed to not having any? And if the answer is yes, you move on with that assessment in mind. And while I'm still uncompromising when it comes to electoralism, when it comes to propping up candidates, there are always going to be candidates that are far better than the average Democratic politician. And if one presents itself and they have a viable alternative, you have to look at the rest of the race and recognize that if he's the best and he is choosing to unseat a Republican politician, then it is idiotic to not push for more a robust and a larger national platform for people like this. He's also openly communicating that what Israel is doing with our support is a side. He absolutely passes that bare minimum standard. These are my metrics. You might have different ones. If you are to say that Graham Platner is going to be like Obama or Fetterman, yeah, there's a likelihood that could be the case. But as far as he hasn't shown that, what's the purpose here? Okay, I think you're dismissing a valid conversation that needs to be had about the Obama strategy. Run as a progressive, govern as a liberal because of people bringing up bad empanada? No, because not a single person has presented a valid reason as to why this is the case. They're just simply relitigating talking points that they saw in a YouTube video. If he was running around doing wishy-washy sentiment, if he was demonstrating wishy-washy sentiment about his own service, about American military conquest in the global South, then you would have a little bit more validity to your arguments. I understand people keep bringing it up, but the aspect can't be ignored to discuss his tendency. I've been watching since 2019. I remember your support saying similar things for Fetterman. Yes, John Fetterman presented himself as a progressive figurehead and then literally went back on every single thing that he promised. If you think that everyone is going to turn out like John Fetterman, then you can't vote for anybody because everyone could be like John Fetterman. So if you recognize that, and why dismiss people? Because the fucking concern is psychotic. That's it. You want to win an argument. You don't want to actually, you are currently not looking at this in a reasonable fashion. You are simply looking at this to say, this guy's fake. I already made up my mind on it. And I want to convince everyone else that he's fucking fake before we even make up our own minds. Just give it some time before you make your assessment, instead of immediately trying to rush to be first in the market, to be the guy who's right. He has significantly better bona fides than John Fetterman in terms of his investment. Even being a part of the DSA alone is like automatically putting him above John Fetterman anyway. I haven't even made an assessment, for the record. Like, I have my own skepticism, especially when someone has that kind of background. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of doing proper analysis off of what he is communicating right now. You're offended. You're offended because you feel like it's hurting your feelings. You feel like your ridiculous expectations of like American political figures is not matching the reality. Why is Bernie Sanders not running on a platform of immediately prosecuting and jailing every single American military veteran, regardless of what their current fucking political positions may be? You have to work within the confines of what's acceptable and what's permissible and what's reasonable. We're finally doing it. We're finally talking about it. All the annoying people can now rejoice. Graham Platner has released a statement about his previous comments after his Reddit account was unearthed. There are some things that he said way, way back in the day that are actually bad. In 2013, why black people don't tip and said victims should take some responsibility and not get so up. Those are unacceptable, okay? Those are unacceptable. They're also from 2013. I thought this type of political posturing was shit that we had left behind. Yeah, he was a broken-brained jarhead in 2013. Some of the comments are 100% unacceptable. At the same time, it was 12 years ago, and he said he was suffering from a lot of mental health issues and confusion because of untreated PTSD. His other posts over time show a much better attitude towards racism and victims of sexual abuse as they get more recent. Exactly. If you look at a dude who has gone through this process of saying shit or saying heinous shit about like victims of in 2013, who then turns around and in much recent times in 2020 and onward, talking about how like cops are, and there are a lot of rural white Americans that do exhibit like sexism qualities, things like that, then I think it's a little bit, I think it's good to place the emphasis on where he has landed at rather than what he used to say, especially considering that none of this has anything to do with his like higher political ambitions. This doesn't mean that Graham Platner is on solid ground in general, especially considering the Blackwater thing, which is a major issue for many people on the left, because Blackwater is beyond doing multiple tours. As far as veteran status goes, okay, going on active duty and being a veteran and then being an anti-war veteran is perfectly fine. Many Americans experience this. Now, when you add on to numerous tours, when you talk about multiple tours that someone has gone through, then it obviously makes it a little bit trickier. But ultimately, the worst aspect of this is that after numerous tours, I assume because he had, because he saw it as like a financial, the only like financial route that he had for himself. He went and joined Blackwater in 2018. That is suspicious, to say the least. So for those who say he himself is like a psyop designed by the state to infiltrate the left or some shit is ridiculous. I think this is a regular ass American dude. If you think the American federal law enforcement authorities have the capacity to literally design such a complex infiltration scheme. So much so that they're talking about, like, this is what, 12 years in the making? Like a guy who in high school had on his high school yearbook was like Free Palestine, and then went and joined the fucking Marines, did multiple tours, came back, worked for Blackwater, but then totally anonymously on the other hand was leaving breadcrumbs to really hype up his leftist bona fides in the age of like in 2020 at peak woke, but did it in such an elaborate way where he had opinions at peak woke during 2020 that resembled the opinions of many people, including, Zohran Mamdani, who is going back on some of the things that he said during peak woke, only to win an election in Maine, potentially, so that he can do what? Just think. Like, not only is this an unimaginably complex scheme to pull through, which requires numerous administrations to design it, okay? But to do what? There is no left. There is no left in this country. Wake up. My honest assessment, judging by like some of the things that I read about him, he is a regular homegrown American dummy. The most suspicious aspect of his background is the Blackwater stint that he did briefly. But everything else on top of that is just a guy trying to figure things out. I'm gonna be honest, I think he's trying to hide what his true positions are because he's worried that people are going to attack him with the socialist moniker over and over again, which he shouldn't be worried about, to be fair. A war within myself, one veteran struggle for life after combat. This is from 2016. Jesus, this hits close to home. I did 3 tours in the Corps, got out to go to college, and ended up on the same exact deployment to Afghanistan with the same Iowa NG brigade. That feeling of chasing the war is something that is hard to explain to people, and it's a terrible shame this guy couldn't find something to fill that hole when it was, why are you vouching for him so much? I'm not even vouching for him necessarily. I'm not vouching for him necessarily as much as I'm like trying to make sure that people are not insane. It's understandable to heavily scrutinize someone's character if they've joined Blackwater, okay? It seems crazy to go from Blackwater in 2018 to be like, I'm a communist in 2020. Having said that, one, on principle, I'm never going to be like, oh, a person is a veteran. You wouldn't be nice to an IDF veteran? I've literally interviewed IDF veterans on this broadcast. Suck my dick. 2 things that you need to understand no matter what, okay? You're building a broad coalition. It's going to have veterans in it, especially in a country like the United States of America. That's number 1. Number 2, it is probably one of the easiest vectors of radicalization. A lot of you come across ridiculous when you take this approach, okay? People have the capacity to change. What atonement is he taking? What punishment has he gotten? Great question. Great question. As a matter of fact, when things are not punishable by law and unironically revered as a matter of fact, and you still realize that that shit was up, that takes a lot of effort. It's called self-reflection. Also, on top of that, a lifetime of PTSD probably isn't great either. But a more pragmatic approach in this situation requires you to look at what a person has done, what they have personally experienced in the process, and who they are now, okay? I love my Blackwater mercenary, vote blue no matter who. I need you all to understand something. This is going to come across as hurtful for many of you because I know a lot of like long-term community members are the ones who get the most mad when I say stuff like this. But your opinion is literally worthless in the grand scheme of things. And so is mine. Many of us do not understand, myself included for the record, do not understand what kind of lived experiences that people have that cause them to do heinous shit, okay? But that heinous shit that we think is heinous, every American thinks is awesome, for the record. Like the overwhelming majority. So pick your battles, please, for once. Please stop getting in your way. Please point to one historic instance where there was a militant left movement that did not almost entirely comprise of veterans as well. Like the constant hangups that I have in my own community about someone's veteran status or even fucking joining Blackwater is completely non-existent. That is not the reason why they're criticizing him. Okay, a lot of you want to criticize him on that aspect, which is understandable. That is worthy of scrutiny. But most people don't give a shit about that. If anything, that probably is seen as a fucking benefit. They're like, oh, wow, he's awesome at war. That's awesome. You know, Platner's racist too, right? He was a 6-time jarhead, dude. He went back time and time again. You're talking about a Reddit post from 2013. Jesus Christ. So is he a communist now? If he was racist once, but not now, why should we believe that he was a communist and still is? First of all, you have to understand, if he's saying racist shit on the same account in 2013, as opposed to saying anti-racist shit in 2020, what do you think is more relevant in this equation? And secondly, things that he said in 2020 about being a communist or socialist, but now being like, I'm a small business owner, that type of shit, inherently is him trying to posture that he's more moderate than he actually is, most likely. He is the fucking median voter, okay? He is the most, like, people go, that's insane. How is this possible? You literally do multiple fucking tours, and then you even join a mercenary force. You leave earlier before your mission is over, but it doesn't matter. You leave disillusioned, but you still fucking chose to work for Blackwater. That's crazy. And then all of a sudden you're running around on the internet on the same fucking account saying you're a socialist communist and all this other shit, okay? And it's kind of funny because there are people, maybe not with the Blackwater exception, because that is literally the most insane aspect of this entire story. But if you were to section off his opinion going from being racist to anti-racist, then yeah, that's normal. If you talk about him being a combat veteran and then actually being disillusioned and being anti-war, that's normal. You don't understand this, chatters, but there are thousands of them in this fucking community right now. People are products of their environment. So they are going to have racist starting positions. They're going to engage in heinous acts. Okay? Ultimately, what matters to me is who they are now. Judging by the people that have profiled them so far that I've talked to and my own assessment on it, it does seem like he's trying to communicate a more moderate position than he actually is. I like that he's being truthful here, it seems. Yeah, dude, he was a fucking moron. He was a Marine. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Of course. Wow, I can't believe in 2013 a Marine that just came out of active duty was saying fuck shit. He was probably the most woke Marine of all time. Meanwhile, half of you dumb fucks got to that same position of racism because you watched the wrong YouTube video and you don't believe that any longer. So why the fuck are you chirping in the chat? You didn't actually go and do fuck shit and get PTSD and brick your goddamn brain, and you still arrived at his dumbass fucking positions about women and black people. Why? Because you watched one Roblox video and it took you down a right-wing fucking pipeline. And you found yourself rehashing Sargon of Akkad takes. So shut the fuck up. You don't have around than others because of your different journey through radicalization or your actions. Treat people like normal fucking people. God damn. Do Iraqis have a moral high ground? Are you Iraqi? Shut the fuck up. It's always out of touch white motherfuckers living in America that have this kind of attitude, this black and white attitude. Or sometimes an unwashed Maoist in fucking Argentina. I'm Iraqi. Hasan, sit this one out. First of all, I don't care. There's a difference between someone who is like every other dumb fuck Democrat that the DNC puts forward, being like, oh my God, I loved being the baby annihilator in the fucking Air Force. I'm much more patriotic than the Republican on the other side. Like, and that's the norm, by the way. The Democrats do this all the time, but none of you fucking leftists have that level of goddamn smoke for people like that. Seemingly, when people are super honest about their service and love how sick it is, you have no smoke for them. I'm sick and tired of this shit. It's a fundamental principle for me to analyze someone on what they are, who they are now, what they represent now, what they say now. Any veteran that realizes what they did was fucked up is not coming to that conclusion because people yelled at them. What is the lesson that we're teaching everybody? If by and large, people look to this and go, okay, this person is demonstrating growth, and that's a good thing. And the most leftist community is like, fuck that! There is no growth! There is no such thing! And then we sit around and we go, oh, why is the right so effective at mobilizing? I don't understand. Why is the right so good at mobilizing? Why do they have such a wide array of different people? I feel like I'm in a constant state of relitigating 2016 era peak woke politics in this stupid fucking community every goddamn day. She supports Israel. Pretty sure she's pro-dead children. No, but she didn't actually tour. She didn't actually go to the Marine Corps. And I'm willing to bet she didn't have some stupid fucking takes in 2013 in a subreddit. So obviously she's more moral than this guy is. She is, okay? Clearly, you have to vote for Janet Mills. I'm saying, as the most moral person, we got an administration that is deploying the fucking military on numerous Democratic-run cities. They're kidnapping people for looking Mexican with the most ferocious gang of mass thugs you've ever fucking seen with no training whatsoever. They're just rounding people up. They're tear gassing children. They're tear gassing people with regular frequency. Okay? And they're shameless about their posture towards fascism. It's no longer a posture of indifference, but welcoming fascism with open fucking arms. Okay? They're eroding all of the constitutional norms that remain, whether it be due process or free speech. The administration has basically said, if you're anti-capitalist, if you are anti-Christian, if you're anti-American, family or whatever fucking idiotic assessment that they've made, then you are branded as a terrorist on the domestic level and you will be fucking prosecuted. I cannot wait. Please arrest me now, because I would rather go to fucking prison than have to deal with dumb fuck lefties who look at all of this and go, I'm sorry, fuck this guy, actually. And there is no alternative to fuck this guy. I just wanted to say fuck this guy. You have no pragmatism. You have no sincere approach to change. You don't even want to take a shot in the fucking dark on a dude who is infinitely closer to your worldview and your politics, at least in the way that he's presented it, than 99% of Congress. You are, at your heart, exhibiting infantile disordered thinking. And you also simultaneously are reactionary. I will never, ever in a fucking million years turn heel and turn into one of those like annoying fucking neoliberals who constantly goes, oh, I'm scolding the left because I'm actually explaining to you that better things are not possible and sometimes someone has to be an adult in a room. I will never fucking become one of those like disgusting fascist little gremlins. I cannot wait for the next cycle when everyone's on that fuck Israel tip, and now and left is going to be even more schizophrenic. They're going to be like, well, everyone is for anti-Israel now, so this guy obviously is a fucking psyop. Everyone that says fuck Israel is actually psyoping us. You are not worthy of a psyop. You are nothing. I am nothing. We are nothing. We are lower than dirt. Okay? We are the dog shit that every fucking Ivy League graduate steps on their way to their fucking $200,000 job as they dominate all of us at the behest of capital. You have no movement. I realize I'm being a little heavy-handed here. You think this community, of all communities, is going to let me live it down now that they found out, as well as I did, that they had a totem cough on his chest, dude? I didn't know he had a totem cough on his chest. My analysis would be a little bit different if I knew that, okay? For you, obviously, it doesn't, this is just an I told you so moment. For me, it's like, holy, bro, this doesn't get any worse. It is a straight up Nazi tattoo. Like, no questions about it. It's probably the third or fourth most common Nazi tattoo beyond like the double bolts and the swastika. You know what I mean? A big part of the reason why I was like on board with him being a genuine person who has like changed and reflected on his like service and stuff like that is one, because I'm not one of those people that insta locks bad behavior or cynicism. But most significantly, it was because like he's a Majority Report fan. He's a Michael Brooks fan. So when you see stuff like that, my expectation is that, this guy, it just doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of stuff that he is throwing around that makes no sense. I need to hear his defense of it, but I assume that this is indefensible. Like, what are we doing? This is like how do you not cover that, my man? How do you not cover that? It just doesn't make sense with any of the other shit that he has presented himself as in his private moments, in his public moments. It was just, I didn't know what it was. I mean, okay, guys, not knowing what the tattoo is when you're initially getting it in Croatia, because some people were saying he was drunk in Croatia, he got the tattoo. That's one thing. Keeping it on your chest without a single person being like, hey, dog, you got a Nazi tattoo on your titty. What the fuck is that about? For like 15 years is crazy. Nobody was like, brother, you need to take care of that ASAP Rocky. Like, if you want to vote for Graham Platner in spite of all this, fine. Like, you make that assessment on your own. But like, but come on. That's a crazy take, dude. My own personal assessment has been all over the place, I will admit. And if you're wondering why Majority Report is defending him and why all these other people are defending him who have talked to him, it's because people think he's legit. Like, people think he is legit a guy who just went through these experiences and isn't who a lot of people present him as. Like, he's not like a jarhead op federal agent, that he is just like, this is who he is. His format is so perfect, okay? Guy who served, guy who was a jarhead, and then like obviously experiences like discontent, realizes he's like disillusioned by it all. If he hadn't gone the Blackwater route, I would not have any issues whatsoever defending him, right? Like, if he did 4 tours and he came out of that being like, dude, what the was I doing? I had no other options, but this shit sucks, and became like an open anti-war veteran type of guy, perfect guy for the left, okay? Perfect. But then he has Blackwater on the stain as a major stain on his reputation. But 15 years of a Nazi tattoo, what are we doing, man? What the are we doing, man? How do you just have that on your chest for 15 goddamn years and you don't know what that is? Like, it does. But also at the same time, I can't help but feel as though, Josh Kraushaar of Jewish Insider is obviously fucking doing this, not because, like, he thinks Graham Platner is a Fed. Don't be stupid now. This is Matthew Castle and Josh Kraushaar are my ops at Jewish Insider. They are Zoran's major ops as well. They're my major ops as well. They constantly fucking write articles about my ass too. It's because he's anti-Israel that they're like really farming this shit. Because if you had a situation where a Republican was outed for something like this, they would never even cover it. They would be like, oh, who cares? What is more shocking to me about all of this is that he doesn't have a single blemish on his fucking private internet correspondence that even remotely leans into Nazi shit. Like, not even a little bit. How is that possible? A guy that has this tattoo, that has this background, should have at some point been like, yeah, I think them migrants are bad. Yeah, all lives matter. This motherfucker was like, Trump supporters are racist. We need an armed revolution. What the fuck? There is no way a dude that was getting a fucking Totenkopf tattoo is gonna be that quiet about their fucking perspective. I like to personally lean into what I think is the most likely reality here. Like, what is the most likely outcome? He is impossible to fucking decipher. Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner says, I am not a secret Nazi after photos of his tattoos emerge. Yeah, because I think that's not a secret. That's like, you get that tattoo when you're an open Nazi. This is not John Fetterman. Shut the fuck up. This is something even dumber than that. God damn it. Guy who's only been alive for like one fucking election cycle goes, everything is John Fetterman. Is this John Fetterman? No, not everyone is John Fetterman. Stop pointing to John Fetterman, okay? I don't think the CIA is capable of delivering a 15-year plan, specifically a 15-year plan that requires infiltration of leftist movements by getting a Bernie nod in a fucking Maine senatorial run against like a fucking purplish Republican candidate, okay? The worst part about the tattoo gate is that as much as I have yelled at Pete Hegseth's Jerusalem cross tattoos and shit, this is worse. That's a straight up Nazi one. Like, it's not, there is no plausible deniability at all. It's just like straightforward. The attitude that some people have about like veterans are all baby killers, like that's crazy, right? If he had posts that literally were like even remotely against migrants, I'd be like, oh, he's like hiding his true ambitions here. He has decades of unrestrained Reddit posting. And when you look at that on its face, it literally looks like a dude who encountered Majority Report and Socialist Rifle Association and Michael Brooks and was like, oh my God, like there is an alternative out there. You know what I mean? Like that's what it reads like to me. But then you got the Nazi tattoo and it's fucking crazy.
I am not a secret Nazi. Actually, if you read through my Reddit comments, I think you can pretty much figure out where I stand on Nazism,
right,
and anti-Semitism and racism in general. I would say a lifelong opponent.
This is the craziest part about this is that it's not like that's not a lie, man. Well, I am not a secret Nazi is also a little bit of a lie, because when you get a totem cloth on your chest, it's not a secret. But damn, the CIA is cooking with this one, guys. I don't think the CIA designed a 20-year psyop to infiltrate the left. This is no longer the 60s and 70s. No, he's just a machine gunner. They are that stupid, I promise. I cannot understand it. I have never seen something so transparently fucking signaling in one direction and then simultaneously have his like social media footprint be the exact opposite.
The reason, by the way, the reason of this video, Saturday was their 10th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
And my sister-in-law was showing everybody the video. And
oh my God. So people around him literally didn't even realize that he had a fucking like his sister-in-law posted the video. What are white people on, bro? Yeah, also obviously my big ops at Jewish Insider are going hard after Platner. D Senate candidate said he called the tattoo my totem cloth, referring to a symbol adopted by the Nazi SS unit. Now, of course, these guys, you know, they're not going to be the most credible when it comes to this kind of stuff, but you know, this is opposition research is opposition research. I don't understand, man. I don't fucking get it. I genuinely don't understand it. Comments. If he had anything in his comments that was even remotely close to being like, man, we got to do something about these immigrants or whatever, I'd be like, okay, this makes sense. Why should I believe anything he's written on Reddit if he isn't willing to show growth and change by covering up his Nazi tattoo? This is a thing he's saying versus things he's done situation. Oh, no, for sure. It is without fucking question. If he doesn't get that shit covered up in the next week or so, it's a non-starter. Like, what are you doing? Now that you know it's a Nazi tattoo, the first thing you should be doing is making a big show of getting it covered up instantly. And remember, tattoo or not, this is a guy who came on the scene and one of his first moves was to say Israel's doing a genocide and it must stop, and we must stop giving Israel weapons. I am not defending Graham Platner, and I'm not defending his Nazi tattoo, but obviously no one is going to listen to me. There are certain things that are understandable as red lines. A Nazi tattoo on your chest is an understandable red line. Now, having said that, there is still something about the way liberals are behaving around this that I think is not that bad. Liberals, by and large, it seems, have been fed up with establishment Democrats. And if someone like Bernie says, this is my guy, liberals, boomer liberals, who under no circumstances in the past, in numerous other election cycles, would have ever aligned with Bernie and a hand-picked Bernie-crat, a hand-picked Bernie candidate over someone like Janet Mills, are saying, nah, that we need to do something different. I like that. Now, people will bastardize my position on this no matter what because they think it's like a defense of Graham Platner in particular or a defense of Blackwater. It's not. It's certainly not a defense of anybody that has a Nazi tattoo. But it does seem like, at least initially, that many liberals are saying, nah, fuck that. We're with him. We're riding with Platner. And I think that's very interesting, especially when there is an alternative. A centrist alternative that's 77 years old. Her name is Janet Mills.
Social media comments have surfaced lately along with images of a tattoo.
They knew that the Oppo was coming. They knew that the Oppo dump was coming, and they wanted to neutralize it. His team very clearly wanted to neutralize it by going to Pod Save America ahead of time and leak it ahead of time. That means that there was awareness that this is a Nazi tattoo at that point. But he still didn't actually say that he was aware until, you know, the Oppo was coming out. And I think one of the first things he should have done, it was like, yeah, that this was like a Nazi tattoo. It's crazy. I know. It sounds like 20 years of not knowing that it was a Nazi tattoo. I know you're not going to believe me on this. Unbelievable, because it is unbelievable. Okay. But I'm getting it removed, right? If there is a way out of this, and I don't know if he will be able to recover from this, but if he does recover from this, that is majorly beneficial for left flank candidates, actual leftist candidates that don't have this fucking insane background to thrive all around the country. I was going to say, this is the other conversation that I've been having with people in the media as well, is that they're saying, look, if you don't want fucking boomers to be elected, if you want someone who's younger to be in a position of power ever, going forward, all of their social media profiles cannot be considered a burden, because everyone under the age of 50 has like extensive social media footprint, unless they're like, I don't know, Zoran Mamdani and have like a clear-cut agenda and have aspirations for office down the line or something. I'm gonna be honest, like, this is a stress test for the absolute worst possible situation. Like, while I am more worried than ever before that even if he were to win, that he is likely to be a very malleable, possible John Fetterman style candidate, in the absence of any sort of alternative here, you're just kind of, Mainers are kind of locked into this. But it's a stress test for whether or not a Trumpian style left candidate can actually overcome these sorts of things that in the past would have eviscerated anyone's candidacy. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it gets played out. Do you understand what I mean by this?
Again, it's supporting Mills. It is more ready to say that if you made these mistakes, you shouldn't be in public office. It is ambitious, and it is very convenient for Platner's campaign, but I think it does tap into something that Democrats are worried about.
Yeah.
How come men keep drifting?
I think Democrats want more shamelessness. This is such a white man take. I'm sorry. I think this is, by and large, a liberal take now. And if this is the overarching liberal take, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, especially when deployed in the direction of left flank candidates. Because let's be real, guys. Liberals are shameless, okay? They don't give a fuck about any of the identity shit. They literally said Bernie Sanders was racist when Bernie Sanders was getting fucking arrested during the civil rights struggle. And Hillary Clinton, as recently as like 10 years prior to her run in 2016, was talking about how awesome it was that she had black slaves on the front yard at the Arkansas governor's mansion. What the fuck are we talking about? These people don't give a fuck about any of this shit. So if they're going to be shameless, I'm glad that they're using the shamelessness in the direction of like a Bernie candidate, a candidate that Bernie hand selected. Yes, it signals that Bernie should have been more careful and more considerate, and it's fucking ridiculous that he just like didn't do enough research ahead of time, and they didn't like see the fat Nazi tattoo on his fucking chest. Okay, but that's my point. My point is that like this shamelessness and the cynical cynical identity politics deployment was only utilized by Democrats in instances where it was appropriate against their Republican opposition, but then also against their left flank with regular frequency while they shamelessly hid or moved the conversation away from their own candidates like failures. The weirdest part of it is he hasn't said any Nazi shit, and he could, especially in this climate. If people are calling him a Nazi, why would he hide being a Nazi? That's the thing that bricks my brain, because that's the only that's the only thing that doesn't make sense in this entire story. Because everything signals that he would be a fucking white supremacist. Okay? 4 tours as a machine gunner in the Marine Corps, getting a fucking totem cough tattoo on his chest, joining Blackwater as late as 2018. All of those things combined, you're like, okay, this is a literal mercenary white supremacist. But then you look at his not public profile on Reddit, and there is not a single, there's like very few blemishes as far as like his statements, especially unexpected from a dude who has all of these things associated. Part of the reason why I was looking at the situation and saying, like, let's wait and see, let's see the bigger picture here, like how liberals react to it, was for this reason. Because it turns out, as I told you, liberals are like, I don't give a what anybody's done. I don't care about anything at all. Like, not even a little bit. And I think this is one of those unique moments where, like, your own personal assessment and my own personal assessment about Graham Platner's viability is seemingly utterly irrelevant. But the new polls that have come out between 1016 and 1021, right, from the Maine Senate Democratic primary show Graham Platner at 58% and Janet Mills at 24%. Couple things to take note of here is that white dude is OP. White dude with a populist slant, like a left populist slant, is, I think, one of the most OP, overpowered tools in the Democratic Party's tool belt. And the other reason why is because I think a lot of Americans are just like oblivious. A lot of Americans are oblivious to tattoos, just as they are oblivious to, you know, what it means if you have done 4 tours / worked for BlackRock in 2018. Overall, the package of saying, hey, that's the old me. When I'm up, that's the real me. Like that is very appealing for a lot of people. They love the redemption archetype, even if this is a little bit all over the place. Not in the case of Graham Platner, because Graham Platner has a long track record of very, very real red flags that are irredeemable even by my standards. Okay, and I feel like I'm very open-minded to people that demonstrate their capacity to change. This is not an assessment on whether or not Graham Platner is going to be a woke force of progress. Only time will tell. Okay, and it's perfectly understandable why people might not think that that is going to be the case. Of course. But this is not even necessarily about Platner himself. This is more so about the audience reception. And I think it's incredibly healthy for the base attitude to shift in this direction where they go, no, this guy represents things that I want. I don't give a shit what you say about his background. By and large, like, I think people on the left, people on the Democratic Party's base of support are not doing the, oh, well, this person has a bad track record, so we can't have him. We can't have him be the candidate. Seemingly, that's what the voters are saying. Regardless of how we feel in this community about Graham Platner, due to his experiences, both as a combat vet, machine gunner, and how he has communicated his perspective or like what he feels was f***ed up about it. Is it centered around the victims of his actions, or is it just simply centered around himself and others like him being a victim? Is this something that he's saying specifically because he wants to win the election and he can't come across as like super anti-military or whatever? Does it correspond to his private moments and what he has said in private to other people, like on subreddits and whatnot? These are all important factors to consider. And I don't think Graham Platner has done a decent job of addressing any of that stuff. But I also suspect that in the interest of winning the race in Maine, I don't think they give a shit about us at all. They don't. Our concerns are not the concerns of the masses. Your concerns might be coming from a moral place. The reality of the matter is, for the overwhelming majority of people, this is not even a point of contention. Not a single person has brought up the fact that he actually worked for Blackwater, which I think is the highest order of priority in terms of red flags goes. Okay, that was the first thing I said, like beyond the machine gunner active duty service. Okay, but ultimately, the people are not reacting in the way that many people in this community are. And that's understandable. Oh, yeah. I heard Graham Platner's recent statements about like American War Machine. And it was really fucking good. I know a lot of people hate him and all this shit, but every day he comes out with a more impressive statement. Yeah. He said, we are so broken emotionally when it comes to our politics that we've literally created this story and that it's inherent in being a competent political leader to kill civilians. Mr. Platner told me, if you're not willing to do some hard things and drop some bombs, then you're not up to the task of power. I think it's the opposite. You're not up to the task of being in power if you do not think about the cost of violence. If that's not at the front of your mind, then I don't think you're morally in the right place to be in positions of power. We like to frame our wars as virtuous, but they're not. Instead, they resemble a declining empire sowing chaos along its periphery as a matter of strategy. Economic and political elites profit while the Americans who fight suffer along with the places they attack. The only way we change that is by talking about it publicly, Mr. Platner told me. If we start to revisit the morality of military conflict and how we use violence, that's going to have a direct correlation to what is good for America. I'm sorry, you will never convince me that that is not the most. I mean, that's like, if you like it when I say it verbatim, because this is what I say verbatim, but you hate it when he says it, at a certain point, you have to realize, like, you know, there is no reason for him to be insincere about this. Like, which message do you think will resonate more with the voters? I mean, this is still, at the end of the day, somewhat of a brave stance to take, even though it's the true stance to take, right? It's just the truth. That's all he's saying. Are you unironically saying Janet Mills is better than fucking Platner? Please, dude. He was pro-Hamas, okay? He was giving Hamas credit in 2014. Okay, what more do you fucking want? While wearing a Nazi tattoo, of course he did. Come on, man. You come on. Please. I'm a Mainer. What are your thoughts on Platner? I like him. I think he has been unbelievably impressive in this cycle, going from a guy with a million red flags who I was not very excited, or like, I thought he was cool at first, and then I found out his background. I really liked him at first because he came out of the gate swinging like, you know, fuck real Medicare for all. I was like, oh my God, this guy's awesome. Looks like a chud, talks like a woke, thinks like a woke, perfect guy, right? And then I found out about his background. I was like, oh my God, that's insane. Four tours, machine gunner, and also Blackwater, get the fuck out of here. And then there was like the totem cough tattoo, and I was like, oh my God, this is the totality of everything that this guy is unbelievable. However, my assessment was that he was, of course, far more preferable to Janet Mills regardless, and it was good that people were overlooking the red flags, or didn't even consider it to be a red flag at all, but overlooking the red flags for the most part, because he was saying all the right things. But since then, that was a year ago, right? That was a year ago. Having said that, of course, for a lot of people that normally don't participate in American elections anyway, he is irredeemable monster for, you know, being a machine gunner. But I have said since day one that regardless of my suspicions of certain red flags, that he would be a use case for the rest of the country to show that you can actually go to a purple state and run the most progressive guy you can. And guess what? He is the most progressive guy, and he is actually doing unbelievably well. And he's going to, inshallah, defeat, once the primaries are over. He's already cleaned it. But once the primaries are over, he's going to most likely defeat a Republican and take over a red seat. And that's huge. If you recall, at that point, initially I said, and I said this on another one of the Pod Save America podcasts as well. If you recall, I said, you look at Graham Platner, he's got red flags, but people really like him. Okay. And he's most likely going to win. That primary is most likely going to win that seat. Now, you have Abdullah Syed, on the other hand, who doesn't have any red flags and has an identical message to Graham Platner. So at that point, if Graham Platner is doing so well, but Abdullah Syed not so well, you have to make a different assessment. Maybe Graham Platner being white is what is causing people to overlook some of these red flags. And maybe Abdullah Syed being Muslim and brown is actually forcing people to think, oh, he's not electable. Like, this is a calculation that perhaps some people are making. Abdullah Syed's going for a blue seat, a blue Senate seat. Graham Platner is going after a red seat. It turns out 65-year-old white ladies and 75-year-old white guys fucking love what Graham Platner has been serving. Let's take a look at one of these rooms that he's filled. And these are rooms that he has filled all around the state, mind you. He has this incredible capability, walking like a chud and thinking like a woke, where he's capable of filling up rooms and arenas in towns where there's just more people attending his speeches than there are people in the fucking town. Graham Platner is now secured the primary victory for the Democratic Party, so now he can focus on unseating Susan Collins. It is going to be a little bit of a flex mode. It's going to be for all of the people in here that obviously wanted to take the battle to corporate Democrats, to centrist Democrats. This is a pretty solid W in the primaries. This shows that a lot of the white voting bloc in this party, even in purple states like Maine, or even in states that will be inevitably voting for a Republican seat, to unseat and flip a Republican seat with Susan Collins, are no longer abiding by the old standard of electability favoring moderates arguments. They no longer believe that you have to pivot to the center. They no longer have the power centers of the party, no longer have the stranglehold, the vice grip that they have had over some of the most active voters in the party. Many former Clinton heads that have been lifelong Democratic Party boosters, donors, supporters, have realized that Graham Platner is a far more viable option, a far better choice to vote for. So we're doing away with the old method of operating with what some people like to call pundit brain. We're doing away with the old method of not voting for who we want, but voting for who we think others would likely vote for. And that's what Graham Platner has demonstrated. This is a day of victory. Even in my most skeptical moments with Graham Platner, looking at his background, looking at what he's done, what did I keep telling you? That the silver lining here is the fact that regardless of the red flags that he has, from my estimation, it's very clear that the Maine base it does not care about those things. As a matter of fact, they might even see it as a benefit, the fact that he was a machine gunner and things like that. Now that Graham Platner is the it boy of the day, let's take a look at what Graham Platner is saying, what Graham Platner has done so far, how he has defended himself. This surely will not spark some unbelievably unproductive discourse in this community. John Fetterman got a stroke, and it caused him to become the most pro-Israel senator. It caused him to become the most right-wing, one of the most right-wing senators in Congress. But it also basically stroked out half of the left, where no one can look at a guy who codes as a chud and ever take them seriously ever again. Everyone is constantly terrified. There's this like genuine trauma. It wasn't just a head trauma that John Fetterman got. It was a head trauma that he delivered to like damn near the entirety of the electoralist left, where they're all like, no, every single guy is John Fetterman. Everyone is John Fetterman. John Fetterman is a unique once in a lifetime. Was he asked about Blackwater? I don't know if Mehdi asked him about Blackwater, but let's be real. Plenty of people have already. And the reality of the matter is this is not a part of the calculus at all for Mainers. I find it totally ridiculous to join Blackwater in 2016 of all, of all times, right? Like, it's like long after we know that this is a war crimes factory. And at best, I think, like, if I'm being as charitable as possible, he joins Blackwater, as many people have, after they've done their tours, when they feel like there's no other option for them to make money. For the record, I'm not giving this is not a moral assessment. I'm just telling you what the calculation is. He does embassy security, and after like a couple months doing embassy security, he's like, this shit sucks, and he leaves. Somewhere along the line, I think he either got one-shotted by shrooms and Michael Brooks and Majority Report, but somewhere along the line, his mentality changes and he turns into a somewhat of a radical person with politics that closely resemble ours. I think that's probably what happened with Graham Platner. Guy came out of the gates swinging against Israel, saying that he's pro-Medicare for all with a Bernie Sanders endorsement. Of course there was going to be opposition research. Of course they were going to come after him. He's not like a professional he's not a professional politician. He doesn't have that same pedigree. Normally, when you come from a military background, you go through the officers program and then go to Yale and get a law degree from Yale or an MBA from Harvard, and then you go into Congress. That's the normal professional career to become a politician. You don't actually go through the process at Grunt, multiple tours served, actually in the line, actually in front of the line of fire, actually holding a machine gun, and maybe even doing some heinous things. That's not the normal route. That's a poor person. That is I mean, his background is not necessarily poor, from what I understand. I think he's like upper middle class, but you don't do this route. This route is actually very unique. He was a grunt. He was a machine gunner for the Marine Corps. He's a crayon eater. And somewhere along the line, he had a real change of attitude. It's very clear. Unless you personally think this is the most elaborate ruse from the CIA, the Jewish Insider was the first outlet to release the story that Graham Platner was actually affiliated with the IDF, that his brother-in-law was literally like a security analyst that had written about Gaza, that was actually serving and embedded in the IDF. This is real. This is a real thing. Jewish Insider was the one that leaked that story. Jewish Insider was the one that put that story out there, and then every ultra ate that shit up, where they were like, "Oh, dude, sins of the father. This guy is totally a pro-Israel stooge. He's a secret agent." It was crazy. And what did I tell you at the time? I was like, look at where this information is coming from. Look who leaked this story. Look who put this story out there. It was the motherfucking Jewish Insider that wrote it, knowing full well that this would go to the right circles. It would circulate in all the right communities, and it did. A lot of people ate that shit up. Platner lied about his time during Blackwater. He said he never worked for Blackwater. No, he said Blackwater had been disbanded by that point, and it was operating under a different name, which is true technically. He's just trying to get off on a technicality. But it's bullshit regardless. Yes, it's a Blackwater. It's what Blackwater became. It's one of the many different security contractors that most veterans go to work for. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It's still totally worthy of suspicion and scrutiny. Blackwater was disbanded and then recreated under different names over and over again. Academy was another name for it as well. And the reason for why was because they kept doing war crimes. Okay, that's it. Because that's what security contractors do. They do war crimes. If you're an anti-electoralist leftist anyway, like, this is not a conversation for you regardless, because whether it's Susan Collins or whether it's Janet Mills or whether it's Graham Platner that's winning this race, winning this seat, it doesn't matter. They're all bourgeois social fascists, two sides of the same coin. So it's not, from your perspective, it doesn't change anything, right? So this is why I never understand why, like, anti-electoralist leftists or ultras will lose their minds, as though they're making a sincere calculation here that, like, Graham Platner is going to be worse than Susan Collins or Janet Mills. He's not. What's inconsistent in his background is the fact that he was like pro-Palestine when he was like 14, and then he joined the American military, the Marine Corps, became a machine gunner, did 4 tours, and then joined back to go on Blackwater. At times he has been, at times he has demonstrated a negative opinion about American warfare, and then has also been a willing participant of it. I personally, and I've said this many times over, I can't repeat this enough, I don't give a shit. The reality that we live in has normalized this death and destruction campaign. The average American 100% does not have the same hangups that you do about joining the fucking military. They don't. They literally do not see it. If at any point they do understand it, then that's fantastic. And many veterans, left flank vets in general, have comprehended their actions and work against American imperialism now. You can poo-poo that away all day, every day. Oh, wee little infantry vet with an upper R middle-class family that offered to pay for his college. He refused the GI Bill to go to Georgetown and got gifted an oyster business. Like, again, and again. Yes, this background is unbelievably normal. It's a lot more normal. What is abnormal here is who he is now. Dude, I'm sorry. And I this is going to come across as harsh, but your antisocial personality disordered commentary about a oyster business owning Mainer is not like, he is a lot closer to the average Mainer than you are. Oh my God. It's the United States of America said over and over and over again that I do not care about who you were in the past. I care about who you are now. Okay. I care about your experiences as long as they have actually guided you in the right direction. If I didn't believe that people had the capacity to change, I wouldn't be doing this. Think about how many positions you have changed since you started watching this broadcast. Think about how different of a person you are now. So many of you come up to me every single day, including even today at the train station, and say, look, man, you've changed my life in such a meaningful way. You made me see the world in a very different way, and I really appreciate that. That is a universal message that I hear from many of you in this community. Now imagine if I was like, tell me what kind of rad lib tendencies you had beforehand. What did you do beforehand? I bet you were a reactionary. I bet you were, were you a Nazi? I bet you're faking, changing now. Every single time someone came into this community and was like, I experienced a lot of growth as a consequence of being a part of this community. Imagine if I just held you to who you were, the shameful experiences that you went through in the past, that would be ridiculous and unbelievably unproductive. Many of you have the privilege of being anonymous on the internet when you talk like this. I personally believe in rehabilitation, and that means rehabilitation for social crimes as well as even literal crimes, even war crimes, as a matter of fact, because I find it to be unbelievably unproductive to just like consistently chirp about where people used to be and not who they are now. Perhaps that's the reason why so many of you make the wrong comparisons when you say, oh, he could be like another John Fetterman, or you're like, oh, what if he was an IDF veteran or whatever the You don't listen to what he's saying right now. You're like, oh, well, this is a lesser evil vote. How is it any different than Kamala Harris? It's not a lesser evil vote. What the are you talking about? This is not a lesser evil vote at all.
I took my shirt off in front of my extended Jewish family the entire time. I would not have done that if I thought I had some obviously recognizable white supremacist or Nazis.
Yeah, that's his biggest defense, by the way. Like his relatives, his extended family is Jewish, bro. Like that photo that they released of him dancing with his shirt off, he's in front of his Jewish extended family there, and they're dancing with him. To me, this is unbelievable because I'm very tapped in on, racist and Nazi tattoos. But it was shocking to hear both Bernie Sanders and Sam Cedar say, yeah, I didn't know that was a Nazi tattoo. Who cares? But we're not going to sit here and goy-splain, okay? We're not going to do that. If the Council of Jewish Leftist Elders have spoken, then we sit and we learn. Gentile asses down and we listen. He should absolutely go on the Tucker Carlson broadcast if given the opportunity. My only reservation here is that people will just add to the list of reasons he's a Nazi. Yeah, that stuff doesn't work. It doesn't fucking matter. He should do it. Guys, I'm going to let you in on a secret. You here in this community, and many of you are dumb as too, and so am I, are still unbelievably educated in comparison to the average voter. Like, do you guys not talk to normal people? I do all the time, okay? And my takeaway, if they're not a Hasanabi head, is usually just their understanding of politics is literally just like, oh, I don't know, the Bernie was saying it like it is, and so is Trump, and that's why I like Trump. Anti-establishment versus establishment. That's literally it. That's it. That's all it takes for a lot of people. Please go outside sometimes and talk to human beings. Please, 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 please. Platner isn't even a Dem sock though, and that's bare minimum. Yes, he is. He's a Socialist Rifle Association guy. He's a DSA guy since like 2018. He is the
and
he's like, when asked, he's like, oh, I'm not a socialist, I'm a small business owner. Like, yeah, dude, he's running in Maine, okay? But Graham Platner on the internet has many haters. Some of those haters happen to be haters of mine as well, right? I'm agnostic to Graham Platner. I think he's a pretty fine communicator. on a lot of the issues that I care about. Only time will tell if he is legitimately a voice against American imperialism. He has made some strides in that endeavor. I think he's communicated about American militarism far better, and especially because he has a position of legitimacy as someone who was a servant of American empire, who directly held the machines, right? But one thing I will say is this. One thing I will say about Graham Platner is the reaction to Graham Platner. I'll be honest with you. Walk like a chud, think like a woke might be an undefeated method. I don't think the Republicans have a way to deal with this meta. Okay? Honestly, I thought you became a believer. I mean, I go back and forth on it. I do think he's one of the better candidates out there, even though he still does have some red flags. I became more agnostic after the New York Times interview, ironically enough. Because like his shit posts on Reddit made me more of a believer. And then I heard him talk about some of these issues on the New York Times interview. And I felt like he was weak around some of his responses. But it's not enough for me to just be like, an anti Graham Platner weirdo. Liberals who have never found imperial conquest that they don't salivate over, okay, have now decided, Graham Platner is a military a merchant. Like he's a merchant of death. Why would you ever vote for him? It's like, dude, what? You love wars. When the did you decide that every member of the U.S. Armed Forces is when did that happen? You don't believe that. You've never said that. You're multifaceted the war here to try to disparage this guy. You loved when Kamala Harris said, I'm going to have the most lethal military of all time. I hated it. You don't like that he invokes class consciousness in his commentary, and you don't like that he's anti-Israel, and you don't like that he's, certainly more anti-war than the average Democrat is, okay? That's what you don't like. It's bullshit. I know he says he wants to engage Maine's shipbuilding capabilities to be competitive with China or whatever. And you look at that and you're like, well, see, it confirms my priors about him because this means that he's in favor of the war machine, not realizing that, Maine has a shipbuilding industry. And that's the only reason why he's saying we should build more ships for his own constituency because he's trying to win a goddamn election. He doesn't go beast mode because he doesn't have to appeal to you. He has to appeal to 65-year-old white people in Maine. Okay? All these veterans came out against John Kerry because he was critical of American imperialism when he was talking about, American military. Like you have to toe a delicate line when you are engaging in like anti-war statements because the American reactionary movement will pounce on it and will just say, it doesn't matter how many tours you went on, you're a bitch. Because you hate America. Yeah. Fox News Digital. I mean, he's a typical Marine chud. It's true. This is literally how Marines talk. Amongst the kind of posture from the Republican side against the guy whose optics look like a chud, a real American hero, a Marine, unironically hurts the Republican movement. Okay? That's it. Because the average hog that sees this guy and then sees some pussy ass Republican, pussy ass like hatchet man walk up to him and be like, why won't you apologize to the veterans, sir? Are going to be like, nah, I like this guy who's getting into his pickup truck who looks like a goddamn lobsterman. You know what's really funny? Would be interested to find out if his parents bought that Toyota Tundra for him. So that's the other thing. Okay? Guys. Optics matter to lizard-brained people, okay? Graham Platner's optics are so unbelievably solid. As long as he's never on the back foot, as long as he's attacking, he's set. He's set to a comfortable victory. One's a vet, the other is Susan Collins. Who are they going to vote for, you think? Oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good. The problem is that Kerry was an upper-class weenie, and the right wing in America has a stabbed in the back narrative over Vietnam. The same narrative doesn't work on the war on terror vets. Everyone thinks that war was stupid. Also, infantry vets are salty and insult other MOs all the time. That just makes them look more authentic. I agree. But I think optics is what matters the most. Like you said, Kerry was an upper class weenie. Graham Platner is not. And they're trying to present him as an upper class weenie all the time for that same reason. They're like, oh, well, his parents are rich. His parents are wealthy. None of it fucking matters, though, because he doesn't look the part. He looks like the kind of guy who would say slurs. Kerry always looked like the kind of guy who would get mad at you if you said slurs. To the average voter, they like him. For that reason, they're like, oh, hell yeah, this guy's... Like, they find that juxtaposition of look like a chud, think like a woke to be catnip. The only thing I can do is show you the fear that centrist Democrats have in their hearts, in their eyes, in their minds. The real fear that they have towards their left flank. And if you can't stand up for people on that left flank, then you might as well be siding with these centrist operatives. And many of you don't see that. If these centrist center-right operatives that are still maintaining control over the opposition party and the opposition movement in its entirety are actively coalescing around Republican fascists, and that doesn't ring alarm bells in your mind, and you say, no, we got to hand it to them. They're right on this issue. They're right this time. Then they're doing round-the-clock coverage on this when you got a concentration camp 50 miles away from the CNN studios in New York City, a concentration camp in Newark, New Jersey. And this is the maximum position that they're posting. They're constantly posting this. And here's one of these guys. Look, like, is this near a tandem? Or is this a guy who used to have a hammer and sickle, who deleted the hammer and sickle from their profile posting this? The moment that you find yourself in this situation where you're literally championing Susan Collins is a moment where you should really reflect on what you're doing. If you cannot find it in your heart to support these people because you have scrutiny, understandable skepticism over their record, because you feel like you've been burned in the past, then focus on your actual opponents. Okay? Look at what your enemies are doing. If the far right is your enemy, as you claim they are, and the fascism from the far right is what you oppose, and the collaborators within the Democratic Party are also your enemies, how the f do you find yourself in line with those people? You think Democrats haven't run, white rugged veterans before? They have. Why do those guys fail? Democrats run vets all the time. They love masturbating to the idea of having like a CIA agent who is going to support establishment, neoliberal, centrist, pro-corporate policies. They constantly put those guys up and they constantly lose. So why is this guy, an unknown guy out of nowhere, capable of defeating the Democratic Party machine and the Democratic Party's own governor in the state of Maine in the primaries, in spite all odds? How is that possible? Is it because he's, is it because he's a dog? Is that what you think it is? Like him, hate him, doesn't matter. Donald Trump created a campaign where there was a lot of buy-in from people. He was able to create a cult pretty much because he said, the establishment, the billionaires, I'm a billionaire and that's why I'm unbought, right? And people trusted him because he was saying things, sometimes saying things that we even agree with, like the fact that, corporate lobbying owns this entire system, saying that Washington is corrupt, is a swamp, and an objective anti-corruption message, okay? And then offering a lot of amenities to those who actually subscribe to his message, saying like, it's the immigrants that are the enemy. It's the trans people that are the enemy. I'm going to combat them. I'm going to do everything in my power to combat them. And he did. He gave him the red meat. That's what these deportations are. It's cruel. It's unjustifiable. It's inhumane. But he's doing it for his base. And that's why the base trusts him. His base trusts him. That's why that last 30% is unshakable, because he's tapped in to their primal needs, right? To constantly dominate vulnerable populations, to abide by white supremacist values. That's exactly what they're looking for. Well, the Democratic Party's base of support has different demands, okay? The Democratic Party's base of support demand that their politicians fight back against corporate interests. The Democratic Party's base of support demand that their representatives push for their issues to take away some of their stresses, their economic struggles. This is not my analysis as far as, or not my personal opinion. This is my analysis over how people are reading Graham Platner and why there's this major disconnect between Mainers and all of these people that pack town halls everywhere he goes versus Twitter posters versus establishment media, the way that they attack him. And when it doesn't work, they turn around and go, why is it not working? Why can't people see what we're seeing? This is a bad guy. Okay? Don't do that. Don't work for your enemies for free. Some of you do that all the time. Some people, maybe not in here, formerly in here, but have left, for example, because they're much more moral than everyone else in here. Is your ultimate goal here to constantly secure a larger market share for yourself within the already tiny marginal left movement that is growing a little bit at this moment? Or do you care about building a broader left movement? Because if the answer is you want that, if the answer is that you demand it, then attacking people that are closest to you is the most idiotic way that you can do it. The broader point here, and the only reason why I care about this beyond, having another voice that's anti-Israel in Congress is good, having another voice that is pro-Medicare for all is good. But the broader reason why I care about this is because if Graham Platner wins against Susan Collins, it destroys one of the major arguments of electability, that left flank candidates are not electable. As a matter of fact, left flank candidates are so electable that even if they have a litany of controversies, people still want to vote for them in purple states to unseat Republicans. The Graham Platner Abdul El Sayed comparison actually is a very important one. It's one that I've also made, if you recall. And I said, look, Graham Platner has a lot of red flags. I'm skeptical of his background for sure. But it's very obvious that the silver lining here is that the population, the people, the voters, they don't necessarily care about his background or his red flags because they like what they're hearing from him. And what they're hearing from him is a left populist message that is being communicated to them with honesty. Holy Toledo, we're back. We're going to be talking about Graham Platner's sting problems and scandals.
This feels like a Platner tax right now in those overall stances to take the Senate. Harriet, and thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
We got a lot of news this morning. We'll
these are Kalshi odds. It doesn't, who gives a dude? It's just so dumb. I'm sorry, but utilizing Kalshi odds to be like, oh, it's cooked, like their chances are getting worse is crazy to me. I think controversy is such an interesting one because we don't even know when. FD Unkifier just declared it's to vote for Platner. That is crazy to me. That is actually crazy to me. I'm sorry. That's wild. I'm sure FD Unkifier has understandable skepticisms about Graham Platner, a guy who was not only a machine gunner and all this stuff, but also had a Totenkopf tattoo, man. Like, what are we talking about? It's kind of a deal, It's not insignificant, People want to vote for someone who's endorsed by Bernie Sanders, who says they want Medicare for all, who says enough with the wars, right? And who says Israel. That's literally what people are looking for, right? And this is a left populist momentum that Graham Platner has happened to find himself being a banner carrier of, okay? He's the standard bearer. When people say he isn't anti-war, we're talking about from the average person's perspective. I think you guys are being, you guys are being you guys when you go, oh my God, Graham Platner is not anti-war. Graham Platner is the most anti-war in comparison to the average politician. Oh my God. When I'm doing this analysis, I am talking about it from the perspective of the average American, okay? From the perspective of the average American, Graham Platner is anti-war, far more anti-war than the average person, and also has a lot of credibility to be anti-war because the average person looks at his tours and thinks, oh, that's cool. He's brave. He's a warrior. In any case, Matthew Petty says, Graham Platner is a literal Blackwater mercenary who signed up because he likes violence per Reddit with a Nazi tattoo. He is also probably responsible for less death and suffering than the replacement level centrist hawk he's running against. I might be the one exception to Iglesias' rule. Yes, I would love to have an outspoken dove in the Senate, but I think Platner's tattoo is really sketchy given his history. There's also nothing in his like private Reddit that indicates that he is a Nazi in any way, shape, or form. So there is that inconsistency as well. It feels like he was just like designed in a lab to make people go insane. Having said that, I don't take issue with people who are scrutinizing Graham Platner. I don't. It's ridiculous. I mean, he especially if you're a leftist, it's red flags galore. Okay. However, I do take issue when people go, well, he was a trigger man for American imperialism, as opposed to the people who literally championed it for their entire political careers. Graham Platner being a trigger man, as opposed to Susan Collins being the politician that sent not just Graham Platner, but millions overseas. Yeah, Susan Collins is responsible for far more death. A politician voting for war is just, regular order of business. Whereas a person who is going to wage that war, well, that's the person who is ultimately responsible. There is a level of responsibility that obviously the person, the veteran, has here, okay? It's true. It's ridiculous to assume that, they bear no responsibility for whatever actions they may have taken part in when they actually served. But if you're going to make this, if you're going to match it up against a fucking politician who championed the war over and over again, yeah, obviously the politician is at fault. I guess the consistency here is these are anti-electoralists for the most part, right? So they don't even think that it matters at all. So I guess that's what it is. I feel like I'm much more consistent on this issue than everybody else. For some weird reason. This like bricks people's brains. Melissa DeRosa being the moral center here about Graham Platner's scandals, specifically what we know about the scandal is the suspicion that there were consensual text messages shared, right, between Graham Platner and women where he might have, been sexting them, right? We don't even know the details of it, right? But Melissa DeRosa being the person criticizing Graham Platner on this is really funny because her job as a Democratic strategist was to literally disparage every single woman that was brave enough to come out to be like, Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed me or sexually assaulted me. Like her job literally was to be like, yeah, these bitches don't know anything. Fuck them. What are you talking about? Graham Platner's scandalous past. The fuck do you mean? We remember your job. Like that was your job. What are you talking about?
All of these things keep piling up. And while I appreciate that he did serve this country, I don't find it tasteful or appropriate that he also mocked an American soldier who was shot by the Taliban.
How dare you? How dare you mock an American soldier? It's so funny. He's got stuff for everybody. Like, these are things that ultras are supposed to love. For the average person that is a naysayer of Graham Platner, they are all objectively far more immoral. Okay? Just on one issue and one issue alone. Graham Platner being anti-Zionist and anti-genocide, and all of those other people that are naysayers of him being pro-genocide. That's it. You immediately arrive at a position where you are a far more moral actor. All of the reasons as to why people are fucking shitting on him they all revolve around his anti-genocide position, his anti-Israel position. And all of the people that are the worst individuals in American politics and in American society in general. Oh, I was going to say, one of the funniest aspects of the Graham Platner is a Nazi saga is the fact that the photo of him shirtless dancing is with his extended Jewish family because his wife is Jewish, right? Didn't he marry, or no, is his wife Jewish, or is his sister-in-law or his brother-in-law? I don't know. Like he's dancing at his wedding surrounded by his in-laws are Jewish. He's not dancing at his wedding. He's dancing at his brother's wedding. The famous Totenkopf tattoo unironically comes from where he's surrounded by his extended Jewish family. If this guy had not been anti-Israel, none of this would be happening. Okay? And people still fucking fall for this shit so hard. Yeah. Straight up. Oh, you're anti-Israel? Well, guess what, dude? Don't actually pay attention to the pro-rape riots that have taken place inside of my favorite apartheid state. And instead, well, you're actually, I've decided you're a sexual deviant. Aha, we got you. It's fucking bullshit. The meta is, oh, are you a prominent critic of Israel? Do you oppose Israel? Well, we're going to fucking lie about you non-stop until you give in and you cave and you just shut the fuck up about Israel. Half of the lies that we're going to make up about you are literally things that Israel has done, by the way, that we're going to attribute to you somehow. It's the same as like disparaging me, right? A lot of people have tried for years and years to disparage me. The obvious thing is like hitting me on, you know, being a rich socialist or whatever the fuck is going to be far more effective for normies than it is to say, I oppose Hasan's worldview where he wants to have a more just, more equitable outcome for all workers, right? So you do a multifaceted, you do a multi-front, multifaceted approach. You try to tackle it from every angle. That's why people will say I'm transphobic. That's why people say I'm anti-black. That's why people say I'm not woke or too woke, depending on which argument is being presented, depending on what the audience is. They will always land on something that like broader audiences will find receptive. And if it actually succeeds, then they'll turn around and say, see, this confirms our priors. It was just that Graham Platner was too anti-Israel to win Maine. He was too pro-Medicare for all to win Maine. He was too left to win Maine. That's the reason why he couldn't win Maine. You should never run anti-Israel and pro-Medicare for all candidates ever again. We've learned our lesson. I'm never looking for a political candidate that says I've done no wrong ever, because what would that make me? One fan said last week, I think Platner's problems are minuscule compared to Trump, said another. This is literally the Trump move, for the record. You offer people things that they want, and you say you're going to be an earnest fighter for them, and it doesn't matter what the controversies are, because people don't give up, because they're like, you're a politician, I don't care. Are you going to fight for Medicare for all? Are you going to fight against Israel and Israeli influence? If the answer is yes, then we don't give a shit, right? Platner, for all the red flags, ones that we think are red flags are not red flags for the average voter, so please don't yell at me. I'm talking about red flags from the perspective of the average Mainer that is going to go out and vote right now. This is not my own personal opinion, okay? Red flags such as he was, he was a dog. He was, trying to, right? Shit like that. I don't think people are going to respond to in the way that the center-right neoliberal establishment wants people to respond to. Look, this is Donald Trump's world, and we're living in it. Okay? Donald Trump set the standard. This kind of stuff only works if the audience is living in an alternative universe where they still think that like politicians are supposed to have tremendous moral integrity or whatever right? It just doesn't, like, Donald Trump is literally best friends with notorious pedophiles. Donald Trump has actually demanded the release of notorious pedophiles. It's the most corrupt administration of all time. None of this shit even comes close to that level of immorality. And also, last but not least, I'm sorry, regardless of my feelings of Platner's record as a machine gunner for the Marine Corps who went into Blackwater or whatnot, they're doing this to him because he's anti-Israel. And all of these consultants have made a killing, mind you, off of consistently running the same electability arguments over and over again. Oh, this kind of stuff doesn't work in a red state. This kind of stuff doesn't work in a purple state. Well, it turns out it does. This kind of stuff only works in New York, is what they said after Zohran Mamdani. And now Graham Platner is actually proof that no, it actually does work for a lot of older white voters in Maine. I'm saying socialism would be viable nationwide. I'm not saying national socialism. Okay, Jesus Christ. Phrasing, I know. I should have worded it better. Chapo and I have a similar perspective on the Graham Platner race, where it's like, I don't give a shit, It's better than Susan Collins, and also it pisses off every bad actor in American politics. Great. It is very difficult for me to look at a guy who all of my enemies hate, who is out there saying, you know, Israel, you know, we gotta end our senseless militarism all over the world. We got to do Medicare for all. We got to fix the affordability crisis. You know, he's doing left populism, and it's bricking people's brains. So Iraqis are your enemies. Because I hate him. Here we go. I mean, if you're Iraqi and you're living in Iraq, you're not voting in Maine anyway. Also, the opposition in that situation is Susan Collins. Susan Collins is objectively responsible for more death and destruction in Iraq than Graham Platner is. Graham Platner is the trigger man. Susan Collins is the politician. I think he has a very shady track record, but I'm also not self-involved enough to assume that Mainers 65 plus are making the same calculation. I don't think a Mainer who hears that he's a fucking machine gunner for the Marine Corps and a grunt and joined Blackwater is going to be like, wow, I can't believe this guy has a real unsavory character. I can't believe he was engaging in death and destruction campaigns for American imperialism so we can extract surplus value and destroy or steal natural resources from the periphery. That's not a thing that fucking Mainers are thinking, okay? Objectively speaking, he's better than every Republican. Like, literally every single one. He's better than every single Republican, even if he still had a Nazi tattoo.
So what are the billionaires worried about? Why are they spending so much money trying to defeat this guy? And the answer is that he's going to stand up to the oligarchs.
Are you still supporting Graham Platner?
As I said, I endorsed Graham Platner. We're going to take back, we're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate.
Graham Platner, on his anonymous account on Reddit, was posting like a fucking bad empanada fan who would be up my ass yelling that I'm not sufficiently revolutionary. Maybe that's why they hate him, because we all hate, we all hate looking at ourselves in the mirror, you know? We all hate what is reflected back at us. Maybe that's the reason why these guys hate him so much. The New York Times was gearing to drop this explosive ordinance, the mother of all, on Graham Platner. Rumors spread from Portland and Potomac about Mr. Platner's messy personal life. Look, the short and sweet of it is he dated a bunch of women. This is a string of women that he dated from, I believe, 2012 to 2016. And one of them is a Republican operative, okay, like a far right Republican operative. That one is the one that actually revealed a lot of damning information. Yeah, it's mostly just like his former girlfriends talking about the complicated nature of the relationship. Lindsay Fififield, 40, a Virginia conservative who has worked for right-leaning groups and Republican campaigns, recalled him as a cavalierly contemptuous of women's emotions, of our weakness. Miss Fififield, who dated Mr. Platner from roughly 2013 to 2015, said that his offensive online post reminded me of just how much he hated women. Oh my God. Again, a woman who worked for the Heritage Foundation, just so you understand. Like, at least they mentioned that she's a Republican operative in the fucking article instead of being like, this is a random person. Rakikot, 41, a Maine Democrat who said she dated him casually on and off between 2019 and 2021, said the post deepened her belief that he did not respect women. When I saw the old comments that he made online, she said, I recognized the version of him that I had experiences with. That his tattoo was a Nazi symbol until it became a campaign issue last fall was simply not true, Mrs. Fififield said. After all, she said, he had taught her the word for it years earlier, referring to it as my Totenkopf. Again, this is the Republican operative. So all the juice that comes from this article that corroborates, that creates the idea that he knew what the Totenkopf was always, that basically leans into his him being an immoral actor that knows what he is doing, all come from the same person. The reality of the matter is, if there's like full knowledge of the Totenkopf, which there could be, again, I don't know. I have no dog in this fight about the Totenkopf. I've said that was a massive red flag for me too. I mean, he has a Nazi tattoo. Mr. Platner's campaign said in a statement, let's be very clear, this is a lifelong GOP operative who's dedicated her career to electing Republicans. Ms. Fifield said she had no connection to the campaign of Senator Susan Collins, Mr. Platner's likely Republican opponent. She acknowledged that independent women had been supportive of Ms. Collins, but said she had not been active with the organization recently. I know it looks like a bitter ex-girlfriend Republican trying to take down a Democrat. It has nothing to do with that, Ms. Fifield said. If he was running as a Republican, I would be doing this exact same thing. I am sorry. Look, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't think that she would actually come out against the Republican.
I will tell you, I'm extraordinarily proud of IWF. It's not well known, but after Jeff Flake got caught in the elevator, a moment I think none of us will ever forget. Absolutely paralyzed by the activist asking him questions and not knowing what to say.
That took literally 3 seconds, by the way. That's incredible. Like, I disputed this purely on the basis that this is a Republican operative. Okay? Disputed it purely on the basis that she's a Republican operative. And in literally less than 3 seconds, we found a story of the institution that she's a part of that directly drafted the memo for Susan Collins when she had to explain why she voted for Brett Kavanaugh. Do you not believe 6 women? Did I say I don't believe any of these women? I did not say that. Believe women means do not reflexively disbelieve women. I'm not disbelieving any of these women, but it doesn't also mean believe Republican operatives unconditionally across the board. To me, Miss Fifield, I put in a totally separate category, okay? There were a lot of chatters who I don't think read the article and simply claimed that there were some there were corroborating information from other victims. Virtually every other victim, with the exception of one that said, I didn't like that he came to my house drunk, basically said he was fine. You guys made it seem like he was fucking engaging in rampant abuse, like rampant abusive behavior to like all of his girlfriends and all this shit. All you did was dismiss everything everything said and say, well, he didn't hit her or rape her, so it's not that bad. Dude made comments on Reddit about rape and is a chub, but of course he didn't actually abuse anyone because Republican women lie. Wait, what? Okay. You need to be very clear, Mythic Dreamweaver. Did you want him to rape someone in this article? Like, is that, or are you saying that he actually raped someone, but this article didn't show? Like, I'm confused. If this was a regular, like, Republican voter, which I said, that had a bad relationship with Graham Platner and revealed it, I would not make the same exact assessment. This is not just a random Republican. This is a Republican operative who has worked for a foundation that not only has taken away women's rights, but also a foundation that has specifically been involved in writing messages for Susan Collins and every other Republican that would allow them to do PR for people voting for Brett Kavanaugh, who was once again, and I need you to understand this, responsible for lying to the American public and continuing to take away abortion rights, which Brett Kavanaugh and every other Republican that was appointed in that same time frame said was a super precedent. What are the consequences here of being claimed by anyone other than the operative? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The other people just said he was misogynistic, or rather said that he, when they saw his Reddit post being unearthed, it reminded them, they said that it was like consistent with his worldview. Why is being misogynistic not disqualifying? Do you live in the same planet that we live in, where, like, are you familiar with the American Congress? Or do you come from a matriarchal society where the matriarch runs the show and you just actually landed on U.S. soil? Graham Platner is you know, he's not even up there in terms of like what Republican and Democrat congresspersons have done. American politics will never advance in a positive trajectory as long as liberals personally step on rakes and keep slamming their heads into the fucking concrete, directed by the most cynical, disgusting, amoral, vulturous Republicans you've ever encountered. They could literally be murdering children in broad daylight. They could be choking children and then turn around and go, well, this Democrat actually talks shit about a child. How do you think child abuse is appropriate? While in the process of choking out a baby, could turn around and go, well, that Democrat actually said kids have bad vibes. You like child abuse. Let me murder this fucking child first. You like child abuse. And every fucking liberal that thinks that there is like any moral equivocation here will turn around and go, you know what? Republican operative that's murdering a child right now in front of me, choking the child to death, maybe even putting their thumbs in the child's eyes. You're actually right. That guy is the fucking villain. And in order to maintain some kind of moral purity, in order to maintain some kind of parity, he understands I'm the most intellectually honest person of all time. I'm going to actually fucking disavow the Democrat that actually said children have bad vibes as the highest version of child abuse. And then people will turn around and say, guess what, sweetie? Two things can be wrong at the same time. No, these two things are not on the same fucking stratosphere. Okay. And then the other girlfriends of his said that his misogynistic sentiment on Reddit corresponds to his personality. Broadly speaking, it's very frustrating that there is a tendency among liberals and leftists alike to consistently play into Republican traps. Okay? As far as Graham Platner's behavior, the claims being made, they're toxic and they're unacceptable. Okay? But no one is irredeemable, and his actions in that relationship, albeit toxic and fucked up, especially if he's no longer demonstrating this kind of behavior, are not irredeemable or disqualifying. If you are on the left, not only do you have to abide by your own moral standards, always, even though human beings are complex individuals and oftentimes fall short of what they want to do, right? What they think is the best possible way to operate. But if you are on the left, or if you're a liberal in comparison to the Republican, if you're just like further to the left than your opposition, you not only have to abide by your set of standards, but you have to abide by their set of standards that they apply to you that they will never follow through. I need you to be extra critical going forward of people that are viewed as a threat by the forces of capital and also Israel. Okay? If you don't do that going forward, if you fall prey, if you fall victim to Republican engineering, we will never build a fucking coalition at all, ever. If someone who is pro-Israel and someone who's pro-Republican Party, a Republican Party operative, pro-Israel, and also on top of that, you know, working for, I don't know, some fucking healthcare lobbying firm or whatever, comes out and says, this person actually like violently abused me, but offers no evidence, for example, which this person didn't do. Okay. You have to be way, way, way more skeptical of that claim. Sorry. You have to. For the past fucking 3 years at this point, how many articles have been written about me? How many things have my enemies said? And they're not just, you know, people who are pros, but how, like, you see it. You're in here every fucking day. This be a story if Graham Platner was not a left populist anti-Zionist. The answer is no. If he was a run-of-the-mill Democrat, fuck no. Absolutely not. In any case, as far as Graham Platner goes, yeah, he's not the best guy. Okay, he's not a good guy. I mean, numerous tours, Blackwater, totem cuff tattoo. He's not. As long as he's a reliable vote for Medicare for all and a reliable vote against Israel, that's the calculation that Mainers are making, I hope, because he will still serve a far better purpose than Susan Collins. But people forgot 2016. They forgot 2020. They have not built the backbone necessary to do this fucking work. Some of you are too young, and you had your socialist awakening in the last couple of years. So you didn't see what an ultimately hostile media environment will do to someone that they deem the opposition. You haven't been around the fucking block yet. No one is perfect. We're all human beings. We're all imperfect. We're all on our own fucking journey. We do bad things. We do good things. As long as you try to be the best version of yourself every fucking day, that's what matters. Jesus Christ. Focus on the issues. What I'm talking about specifically is about the tendency of a lot of people on the left and liberals to immediately fall for the oppositional framing coming from unbelievably reactionary neo-Nazis. Do you really think someone who's willing to fucking lie at the behest of a state that is doing a genocide and rapes and mass destruction of all civilian property would ever go so far as to embellish their personal experiences with a person that they now see as a threat to their emotional support apartheid state doing a genocide? What? You must not believe women. Don't be fucking stupid. If you want to organize, if you want to build a movement, you have to be a little bit more skeptical of narratives being formed by your opposition. Just to get a read on the situation, hypothetically speaking, if there was another viable Dem primary candidate with a decently progressive platform and far less oppo than Platner, would we still be behind Platner? If they had identical positions, of course I would get behind the person that didn't fucking join Blackwater. But there is none. I'll give you one more thing. Yeah, there's no stopping Trump without Maine, by the way. So this conversation is ridiculous. And it's kind of funny that it's like leftists that kind of understand the severity of the situation, the severity of the crisis. I don't care about the things that he's done unless it's like literally irredeemable. I think he's done irredeemable shit in service. And even then, I'm willing to overlook the irredeemable, possibly irredeemable things he's done in service. Is it worth at least considering that Platner might be a bad guy? I don't think he's a good guy. I don't know the guy. I don't think he's that good of a guy at all. I don't care. Like, what do you mean? That's not the calculation. I have grown more defensive of Graham Platner since the attacks started rolling in. The more people attack him, the more objectively evil monsters attack him, the more I think to myself, well, the people attacking him are not exactly forces for good in this country. The My Totenkopf story doesn't seem real. I'll say it. I didn't even believe Graham Platner's initial statement about like, oh, I didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. If you recall, I talked about it extensively. And now that I've heard someone who's been like, well, Rameza Öztürk was actually trying to kill children and was supporting Hamas and therefore should be deported from the country, organizing violent actions and threats to Jewish students. I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't believe you. Sorry. Yesterday I covered this, but I'm just going to touch up on it a little bit. For the last week or so, a lot of operatives on the political side were spelling trouble for the Graham Platner Maine Senate run. I have never personally seen this level of investigative reporting on the possible misdealings of someone running for Senate. This is a targeted attempt at doing opposition research. You get it, right? Like, this is an attempt to create smoke and then therefore point to the fire. Now, at times, we have seen the New York Times reduce their editorial standards. One of the most famous instances of the New York Times openly reducing their editorial standards in an effort to get a story out was with the article Screams Without Words. The article that accused and the entire Palestinian resistance of engaging in coordinated, mass-directed mass rapes on October 7. Virtually every single piece of information that they delivered in that article has been completely dismissed and proven to be wrong. Several women who dated Graham Platner recall unsettling behavior. Okay? This is a way to basically say, you should be worried about Graham Platner, but we don't have enough information to openly tell you why. Okay? And of course, there were still a lot of people who obviously read the headline and didn't already like Graham Platner for a litany of different reasons that went along with it. They were like, this is bullshit. So are you saying you think it's untrue, or what you're saying about the allegations? I think that there was embellishment. There was a little bit of maybe hyperbole, potentially, or at least there's enough cause for suspicion that there is hyperbole in some of the statements that one of the girlfriends of Graham Platner made. It just happens to be that the person that had the allegations is a Republican operative who has not only been a Republican operative for the past decade, but is a Republican operative that has exclusively worked with an organization that actually is responsible for the PR initiative that got Susan Collins across the finish line on the Brett Kavanaugh appointment, when Brett Kavanaugh had a litany of rape allegations that surrounded his appointment proceeding. They are trying to actively besmirch and tarnish and ruin the chances of a Democrat possibly being the majority vote in an otherwise Republican-controlled Senate that also happens to be a Democrat that's openly anti-Israel. And that's a big problem for a lot of people. I didn't even know that she also started on her own time, apparently, a group called Ladies for Kavanaugh, which makes it even less substantive. If someone is so involved in political knife fights of this sort that as a political operative that is so invested in defending the Zionist occupation and the genocide, that they will actively lie about legal permanent residents writing op-eds and being criminalized for criticizing the state of Israel, what makes you think they won't fucking make up shit about a possible senator that will be openly against Israel, a reliable vote against Israel? What makes you think that they won't do that? She said, anyone who's ever extracted themselves from a relationship with a narcissistic abuser knows it isn't clean or easy. I cringe remembering how many times I tried to play the cool girl or fawn in response to what was clearly abusive, coercively controlling behavior by Graham. I also know how dangerous it is to become the target of a narcissist, so even long after our relationship ended, I continued to be upbeat at any time he reached out, though I would also immediately shut down any attempts on his part to initiate flirting or romanticizing of the past. Yes, the day I saw him announce he was running, I wanted to make sure people knew he had a Nazi tattoo, and I was terrified he would find out it was me. But of course he knew it was me. What's ironic is I absolutely never would have shared my story if he hadn't been relentlessly attacking my character behind the scenes for months once the tattoo story came out. I tried to signal that I wasn't the source and stayed completely silent about him on social media, even as most of my friends posted regularly about what a bad person he is. But then in early April, the New York Times came to me. I asked how they got my number. I said I was not interested in sharing my story. They said, but wait, there are other women terrified to tell their stories too. And you need to band together. We will help you. We will protect you. Men can't keep getting away with this. Guess what? This is what a Republican operative does. Now that her credibility has been tarnished all up and down the timeline, she's pulling the fuck the New York Times cord to at least manage her own personal reputation and perhaps still continue to be a Republican operative. Notice how she immediately shifts the blame over to the New York Times and says, oh, the New York Times actually had credible rape accusations. Actually, they were going to Me Too him. Classic New York Times inventing Me Too scandals, right? That's it. Dude is still doing this shit. Yes, I am. Yes. And I think it's important to do this, even for someone of shitty character or poor moral choices in the past, as far as like joining fucking Blackwater. Do you want to know why? Because it's you have to fucking push back if you see a smear job being conducted by a fucking Republican operative Because if you don't actually build some fucking backbone towards this kind of thing, you're going to constantly find yourself duped by Republican operatives in the future, as you have done so in the past. I'm done. I'm done with Republican agents and reactionaries weaponizing woke. I'm done with it. This is one of the things that we got to excise from our movement. Okay? Straight up. This is one of those things that I think needs to stop. These people do not care about this stuff. Okay? They don't. They're weaponizing it against people who they perceive do, who will easily get duped. Okay? Why are we not entertaining the concept that both could be true? She can be targeting his campaign, and it can also be true that an alcoholic combat vet has a tendency to sex women while married, get a Nazi tattoo, work for Blackwater. And why did bro date a Republican Kavanaugh head? Does homie ever make a good decision? Did I say that Graham Platner makes good decisions? He clearly doesn't. I don't think we're in disagreement there, my friend. As a matter of fact, he is a lifetime of bad decisions, from joining the Marine Corps to go on fucking 4 separate tours of duty, and then joining Blackwater, getting a fucking, getting a tattoo in any tattoo parlor in Split, Croatia is always going to give you a 50-50 chance that it's a fucking Nazi tattoo at a Nazi tattoo parlor, by the way. So that's also another bad decision. Okay. So yeah, he has a lifetime of bad decisions. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, he never worked for Blackwater. Yeah, it's cope. He worked for a private security contractor that was an offshoot of Blackwater. Blackwater obviously didn't exist at the time because of all the fucking war crimes that they had committed. And yes, he did diplomacy security. I know. He got a contract for guarding a U.S. ambassador, a program set up by Obama, these Radlib's favorite president. Yes, I know. I know all of that. I'm aware of all that. It's still, it still once again shows that, he didn't have the right mindset at all. But why does Chuck Schumer support Platner? Because at the end of the day, Chuck Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. Chuck Schumer loves Israel first and foremost. Chuck Schumer can get away with not supporting openly Zohran Mamdani for New York mayor. But if Chuck Schumer came out and did the Jake Auchincloss shit and said, oh, I don't really care if there's a Democratic majority, they would probably kill him, okay? Proverbially, not literally, but Platner is running for Senate. Chuck Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. And even then, he reluctantly defended it. So, yeah, in Zoran's case, the alternative was Cuomo. In Maine, the alternative is a Republican, which means the Democrats can't take the majority in the Senate. If Pill's Mafia was still in the race, you would hear Chuck Schumer's real opinions on Graham Platner. Okay? When you have a solid foundational policy that centers the working class, you develop a tremendous amount of loyalty from the base. Loyalty that causes the base to overlook your very clear personality flaws. Does that remind you of perhaps another cult-like leader who did the same thing but for Republicans?
A disgrace to every veteran that has PTSD, like I do, because he's using it as an excuse to cover up his own personal failings. You do not abuse women because you were in combat. You do not say things about trans people, all sorts of, you do not wear Nazi symbols because you were in combat. That is because you are who you are. He's a little bitty, well-to-do, hiding behind his
They found the one bad empanada. They found the one bad empanada in Maine, dude. They found him. They found the bad empanada fan. It's just weird because his criticisms of Graham Platner are identical. I don't know why. White, chud-coated guy with left populist messaging genuinely, I think, is catnip. Like, I don't... Dude, I cannot imagine what the attitude would be if he was like even Italian. Okay? Like if he was like, Hispanic, oh boy. Oh my God. There's no shot. I mean, we have a direct one-to-one comparison, right? We have it. It's Abdul Al-Sayed. Just literally unvarnished, perfect reputation, lifetime of service, defending people's access to health care, lifetime advocacy for Medicare for all. And the way that the media tries to talk about Abdullah Sayed is like as though he's a monster. He's like a very scary Muslim guy. Like, I cannot comprehend what it would look like if he had one of the controversies that Graham Platner has had. Muslim or not, they're smearing all leftists is true. If you're anti-Israel, you're getting smeared. Okay? If you're anti-Israel, you're getting smeared. That's a certainty. That's a certainty. However, what I'm talking about is the public reception. Because this barrage that they've opened up against Graham Platner, this multifaceted, ongoing, never-ending manufactured outrage campaign, has seemingly not put a dent in his fucking reputation. It's hard for me not to, compare my own experiences as a quote-unquote political operative over the many years that I've done this, advocating for similar, if not sometimes more radical things that these guys are advocating for. And the way that motherfuckers talk about me online, you think I'm like strangling puppies and murdering children on a fucking daily basis. Meanwhile, the people making said accusations literally have like pedophilia charges and shit, and it still doesn't matter. It's actually crazy. Moving on to Democratic Party primaries, or primaries that took place in Maine, South Carolina, numerous other places. Obviously, Graham Platner won the primaries last night, as expected. It's so funny that liberals who maintain the vote blue no matter who posture, like the centrist liberals who are unbelievably pro-Israel and Israel first, clearly, that have taken Graham Platner's statements against Israel very seriously, contrary to what the ultras think, are deciding to say, like, oh, you guys don't understand. We're just giving you a sincere warning that, like, you only know how to beat us, centrist Democrats. You don't know how to beat right-wing Republicans. Right-wing Republicans are far more vicious, far more ruthless, and have a lot more money to dump in these sorts of races. And while that is true, and the Republicans have already entertained a $50 million war chest that they're going to be dumping in the direction of Susan Collins here, it's very clear to me that liberals recognize something that I've been saying since day one. Like Graham Platner, don't like Graham Platner, it doesn't matter. Graham Platner's platform shows that you can actually win with left populism in a purple state, in a red seat. You can win over a red seat. This betrays the fundamental argument that liberals have advanced over and over again against left flank candidates. So that's why I don't spend a good deal of time talking about Graham Platner's background or his shortcomings or what went wrong here or anything like that. Okay? They recognize it because, I'm sorry to say this, they're a lot smarter when it comes to elections than the average online lefty is. Okay? This is their field. This is where they are dominant, and they know exactly how to undermine their opposition. And when I say their opposition, I don't mean the Republicans. Their opposition in this race is the left. For the centrists in the Democratic Party, they would much rather maintain, for some of them, they would much rather maintain a Republican majority in the Senate than to give way to the argument that you can actually win with left populism in a purple state. You can actually win with left populism in a red seat. And I've been saying this since day one, since the first Graham Platner controversies came out. Since the first Graham Platner controversy came out, what did I say? I said, look, I have my suspicions, I have my skepticisms about Graham Platner, but the silver lining here is that left populism is demonstrably successful, even in places like Maine. Now, what I think is going to happen in the upcoming months, in the lead up to the actual general election, is you're going to see some party officials and party members in the Democratic Party buck up and recognize the severity, recognize the danger of a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and actually defend Graham Platner and offer support to Graham Platner and try to get Graham Platner across the finish line. There will, however, be a lot of naysayers that operated within the primaries to limited success continue to launch attacks against Graham Platner because they would rather a Bernie-crat lose to prove their priors and allow a Republican majority to take shape than to allow a Bernie-crat to win and prove their worldview to be insignificant, inconsequential, and wrong.
I was a kid who picked blueberries under the July sun, and then one day, I was a kid who signed up and left to fight for his country. And when I returned...
For the record, whenever he says I fought for freedoms or whatever, I cringe, okay? It's cringe as to be like, oh, I fought for freedom. I fought for freedom. It's unbelievably inconsistent with the other statements that he's made about his service, specifically in private when he was, a Redditor. And I suspect it's because he wants to win an election rather than showcase his like actual opinion that he fought for, preserving American freedoms by going out to Iraq. It's unbelievably cringe. It's also ridiculous. I don't even think he has to say that. You can say that you believed that was your intention, that you believed it was honest, you believed it was earnest, and then you felt discouraged when you actually served, when you actually put on the, when you actually put on the uniform, and you went out there and you were broken by some of the actions that you committed, something like that.
I carried with me the weight of forever wars and the struggle and the alienation that came with it.
Okay, never mind. I spoke too soon. I'm going to say something that's going to create a nuclear atom bomb in the discourse here. Because if you recall, like there's a couple people in our flank, in our side, that have been critical of Graham Platner. Or have refused to endorse Graham Platner, or has just been like, I haven't endorsed anybody in this race, right? AOC is one of them. AOC said something that I think is perfectly appropriate to say about her endorsement process. AOC came out and said broadly, when she's making endorsements, that she looks at someone's track record. She said, just because someone says the right things doesn't mean I'm going to automatically assume that they are invested in fighting this fight. Just because someone has a good policy page doesn't mean that they are, doesn't mean that they have the actual background, right? Graham Platner talks the talk, but does Graham Platner walk the walk is a real consideration. I think it's a perfectly valid thing to call into question, as a matter of fact. The reason why I say that is because while Graham Platner is incredibly solid on the messaging side, and I like that a lot, does he have the organizing background? So here's the thing. I like what the Graham Platner campaign spells for insurgency campaigns and insurgency candidacies all around the country. Okay? I like it quite a bit. But as far as people's skepticisms goes, I also understand that as well. Here's what AOC told me about her endorsements in March, says Andrew Sullender. Anybody can put up a website and put a list of policy commitments on it. We have to see, is there a record on those commitments? What is the relationship to an on-the-ground field force like? That is 100% the right attitude to have with endorsements. I say this now, especially as someone who does work with a lot of candidates, who does actually hype up a lot of candidates, who has now seen some defeats and seen some successes with the candidates that I work with. The magic zone for me is when a candidate has good messaging, a good policy platform, but also on top of that, actual work in the field to advance some of these agendas, some of these, some of these policy platforms, like genuinely has done some work to move in this direction. And last but not least, and this is the most consequential aspect of it, on the ground organizational backing, a ground team. When you have all of the above, you're going to probably win. So yeah, I do agree with this assessment that she's making here. Do I want Graham Platner to win this race? Absolutely I do, for a million different reasons. I have the leftist reasons why I want Graham Platner to win, okay? Regardless of all that skepticism, regardless of all that scrutiny, the lack of experience that he has in terms of organizing on the ground, like the local DSA not actually, or almost endorsing him and then not endorsing him. These are all considerations from my perspective. Having said that, none of that matters. It's all immaterial. Other than Socialist Rifle Association work that he's done, I haven't seen much in terms of like getting involved in his background, getting involved with like local organizations. He is a yapper through and through. He's great on message, okay? Down to the optics, down to everything else. Like, rugged guy, says all the right things. To me, this means that this is a message that people want to hear. That's a good thing. I will never look a gift horse in the mouth and say, how old is this gift horse? I will never say that. This is a gift horse. This horse was gifted to us. This is what I mean when I say this guy's message is messaging. The optics of it. I know that some people don't like the grunt force vibes, but I think his message is so sound, excellent, A+, very, very good, and better yet, he proves the point I've been making for the past couple of months. Okay. The point that I've been making for the past couple of months is that old whites want to hear this shit. Americans are not ready for this. Americans are not ready for a movement like this. They are, bro. Old whites especially are. The Barbaras and the Deborahs are ready. They're saying, strap me to a missile and launch me towards the White House. That's what the Barbaras are saying. The Deborahs, the Barbaras have had enough of business as usual politics, and yet many of you in here don't want to hear it. Every moment that we spend where people try to manufacture outrage where there is none, you know, I'm an imperfect person. There's no, you know, I have blemishes on my record, of course. That's just how it goes when you have a regular working class, you know, average Joe who runs for office. But every single moment that we talk about the blemishes of my track record is a moment where we're not having a conversation about the problems that persist for Mainers. Believe me when I say this. If Graham Platner wins this race, which I think he will, this will have tremendous positive reverberations across the rest of the country. Because now, just as we point to Zoran's victory as a way to win elections in the future, and Zoran's success in governance as an alternative that people respond positively to, we can do the same for purple states and red states alike. I can't begin to explain how selfish these creatures are, by the way. Like the near attendants of the world who will literally do everything they can in their power to protect their sinecure, okay? They will do anything in their power. They will try to tank this race because this race's victory is a direct shot against the pathway to success that Neera Tanden has presented her entire career, constantly demanding pivots to the right. All of a sudden, that argument falls apart. Donald Trump coming out and saying Graham Platner is a thug and is worse than anyone else who's ever run for office is literally the greatest gift of all time that you can give to Graham Platner. You are the standard bearer of pedophilic representation in office. When you call someone a bad guy, that literally carries the opposite weight, and it causes people to assume he's a good guy. Because everything that they've said that Graham Platner has done, ironically, Donald Trump actually has done and has been found liable. This is Platner's first general election ad.
Most powerful Democrats and Republicans in the country were on Epstein Island. It seems the only thing the party establishments can agree on is a love of Jeffrey Epstein and a hatred of me. I'm Graham Platner, and I approve this message because together we will take back our government from the...
I mean, that's beast mode to be like, everyone who hates me is a pedophile. Don't read this now, but I'm pretty sure this Graham guy has had sex before. Stop. I'm afraid Susan Collins, who has never had sex, deserves to be the next senator of Maine. I'm afraid with this new information, there's no other choice. We were Pills Mafia till the bitter end, and now, as Mainers, as people who vote illegally in Maine, this entire community does, we have no choice but to vote for the not sex haver in the Senate race, and that is without a shadow of doubt, Susan Collins. It's time to talk about Graham Platner now, because that's the top news story. For those of you who don't know, if you've been living under a rock, Graham Platner is this Bernie-crat candidate that came out of the gate swinging, anti-war, anti-Israel, pro-Medicare for all, but had a checkered past, right? A lot of red flags in his background, and he was doing phenomenally well against Janet Mills, the current governor of Maine. He defeated Janet Mills thoroughly, handily. Janet Mills dropped out, as a matter of fact, when the primaries took place. And here's the thing: a lot of establishment Democrats hate this guy, right? A lot of people in the pro-Israel side hate this guy. And in the past, he had been the recipient of a lot of attacks. Many of these attacks were somewhat silly. Some of them were unsubstantiated. And the criticisms that he should have received were obviously his background, his investment into, his numerous tours and then going back into Blackwater, things like that. Those were red flags for me. The Nazi tattoo was a red flag for me. Those weren't red flags for the average American, and certainly not the average Mainer. But then the New York Times came out with this reporting, right? The New York Times came out with this report, and they had said this is an unbelievable allegation that's about to come out. They highlighted the report as though there was a serious allegation. And when the New York Times report came out, it turns out that was not the case, right? There was they looked at his background. They interviewed 7 of Graham Platner's former partners. Most of them actually had nothing but nice, kind words to say about him. And 2, one of the 2 said that there was one moment that she did not feel great about. And then the other was a Republican operative that said Graham Platner had done the classic, male manipulator, domestic abuser moment, the risk control, right? This article seemingly is bad. Woman who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. The Maine Democrat denied the allegations and said any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue. A woman who dated Maine US Senate candidate Graham Platner says he forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections, an allegation Platner denies. The woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassicott, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with a man Rassicott dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and acquaintance. That is curtains. Okay. Mossad Pederaz? No. That is the trifecta. Okay. That is the trifecta of a reliable allegation. Personal firsthand testimony to a friend, a close confidant, back from way before Graham Platner ever ran for Congress. Are you kidding me? And then also direct testimony from a therapist. That is very different. There is not direct testimony from a therapist. No, sorry. Emails between Rassicott and her therapist. Okay. Emails, reviewed documents, including emails between Rassicott and her therapist, and messages between Rassicott and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Rassicott says she had an on and off relationship with Platner, who is now the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night, in late 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him. So this is one of the 2. Rassicott is the other. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, this is no longer my choice. Platner denied the allegations. These allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue, he said in a statement. Rassicott previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner to the New York Times, but she says she didn't go public with the specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a victim. Rassicott said compelled to go public about her experience because the reaction to the Times story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. Contacted by Politico, Fifield stood by the allegations she made to the Times and declined to comment further. My part of the story was just a read over, Rascott said in an interview, and the story was just Lindsay and the accusations of her being politically motivated. Rascott said she was torn over coming forward in part because she agrees with Platner politically. One of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics but not supporting him as a person, she said. I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have the whole scope of who he is as a person. In a statement, the Platner campaign reiterated his denial and accuses critics of trying to drive him out of the race. These allegations are very serious, and Graham vigorously denies them. They are also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. For a year, opponents of this campaign have thrown everything they can at Graham, calling him a Nazi, a war criminal, and a communist. None of it has been true, and this is no different. It is not a coincidence that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. Graham began this campaign to fight for a Maine where everyone is treated with dignity and where Mainers are put first, and no amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. Platner, an oysterman and political newcomer when he launched his Senate campaign last August, easily won the Democratic primary last month to face GOP Senator Susan Collins in one of the nation's most highly watched Senate races. His remarkable rise has been tainted by controversies including offensive online comments and allegations of past mistreatment of women. He has not previously been accused of... So here's the thing. This is a serious accusation of the highest order, and it has all of the hallmarks of a verifiable accusation. Okay? Conversations in the past, far before Graham Platner came on the scene as a political operative, is a fairly reliable way to verify these accusations. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. As you guys know, my policy on this is, believe women doesn't mean reflexively assume that all women are incapable of telling a lie or anything. It just means don't reflexively disbelieve women, right? And contemporaneous communications is huge, especially if they are before he was in politics. Exactly. Central Committee is correct on this. Here's the other side of the story. Okay, I believe this accusation. I believe this allegation. Let me just make that very clear, especially because, once again, there are other friends with correspondence from before Graham Platner became a known entity. The timing of this, on the other hand, is, once again, fucked up. The timing of the drop is in the column of rat fucking, but the accusations are certainly real. Okay? Do with that information what you will, but the accusations, they are as credible as it is going to get. Okay? Unless the correspondence between Rascott and her friend is not from back then, or the other partner that Rascott had, which I have no reason to believe that that's the case, for the record. Okay, it still ultimately lends itself to a verifiable and credible accusation. Both the therapist and the friend refused to comment. This needs receipts. So let's continue. I still stand by what I said about Fifield, by the way, especially considering that she spent a good deal of time not just being a Republican operative, but specifically defending Brett Kavanaugh against those very real allegations. Brett Kavanaugh then also turned around and literally denied women bodily autonomy. Hundreds of millions of women on U.S. soil were impacted by Brett Kavanaugh's lies. So I will once again stand by my previous statements on that story. This is a different situation, I think, just so you guys understand. And the reason why I'm taking this position is to show you that there is a lot of veracity to these claims. This definitely happened, right? For this to be something that she's reconsidering, regardless of whether or not it happened, because that is not in dispute at all. But for her to reconsider and then come out right now, the only thing that would tarnish the credibility of this the victim here would be if there was like any additional coaching or something, or if like outside groups and we're like, hey, this is a serious allegation, you should definitely come out and speak on it. And even then that happens at times, because it takes a lot of courage for victims to come out in instances where they're accusing someone of sexual assault, especially when the person that they're accusing of sexual assault is now running for Senate and is a fairly popular candidate. Once again, I'm trying to give you the most critical lens here as someone who definitely believes Rasico's firsthand account here, especially because, like I said, contemporaneous conversations from back then with other people, especially before Graham Platner became like a known political figure, it's consistent with true testimony. I looked at Lindsay Feefield's testimony, and what did I tell you? Her politics are secondary in this, even though it was directly related to the Brett Kavanaugh situation and doing PR for Brett Kavanaugh, which obviously makes her a less credible accuser. However, the real reason, as I repeatedly told you back then, was that there was no contemporaneous conversations. There were no conversations that Lindsay Feefield had had with her friends about Graham Platner, beyond being like, oh yeah, he's a bit of a rough shot, he's a bit of a rough guy. There was never something as clear cut as Lindsay Feefield confiding in a friend, or confiding in a new partner, or going to therapy. Like there was no secondhand testimony that you could go to. And I said at the time, if there was, that would mean that this is a credible accusation regardless. Graham Platner came out with a statement after this article came out.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built.
What is this? When did you / what made you change your stance on this after the news broke a few weeks ago, during which you downplayed it? Did you read the Politico article where the victim literally said she did not feel comfortable revealing the full extent of Graham Platner's actions? You know, this is an entirely new article. This is the same victim with actual allegations. I did not yet. So why did you come in here with this assessment then? Are you okay? This new article came out an hour ago. This new article actually has like verifiable and very credible allegations of sexual assault. The previous article, which featured the same victim, did not have these allegations.
The largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics. The hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So,
this might be an unfair question, but I would like to know what you think should be done if Platner drops out and if there's still a road to go for Maine. I mean, I think it's fucking cooked. I think it's cooked. I think he probably will drop out. And I don't know what else to fucking say about it other than holy shit, Susan Collins. I mean, talk about a person that just, this video is like 95% pablum, by the way, just so you know. Yeah, I mean, he fucking came out of the gate swinging with the denial. Chris Rabb being skeptical when questioned about Platner a few weeks ago is just so justified right now. AOC staying away from the Graham Platner campaign comes across as, fairly, I mean, it just looks very different in hindsight. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of red flags that I also pointed to is irredeemable. I said it even back then. I said it even before the New York Times report came out, where I said, like, look, if there's sexual assault, and it's over, it's fucking irredeemable. This is not like any of the other allegations. This is not on shaky ground. This is as open and shut as it gets. Apologize to everyone who's been warning you about Graham Platner from the beginning, you performative coward. Yeah, okay, dude.
Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting.
I love when, you know what's funny? I love when people go, hey, this ginormous incident with significant accusations of sexual assault took place that's shaking up national news. How can I make this about my least favorite Twitch streamer? Are you okay? How are you any different than the fucking weirdo Epstein fans who literally saw October 7 and then watched as Israel started bombing Gaza, immediately killing more people than October 7, and went to work to be like, this is our opportunity to make sure that we compile every single thing that Hasan says so we can make this a national story later down the line. If you see, incidents taking place of national consequence and your first thought is, how do I make this about a fucking Twitch streamer? You're not going to make it. Shut the fuck up. You need help. We're not making it about our least favorite Twitch streamer. We're asking for some accountability since you absolutely give positive coverage to this guy after knowing what he did in the Middle East. You're supposed to be on our side, but you run cover for people you know are war criminals, even though sexual assault is where you draw the line. I'm gonna move on from this. Okay, please shut the fuck up, please.
And to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me.
There are definitely people on the left who automatically go, oh, you touched a machine gun. You were in the American military. The American military is an imperialist force. You have done war crimes. It's understandable why people arrive at that conclusion, for the record, because many who do active duty combat, who see active duty combat, engage in things like that. My scrutiny of this, of Graham Platner's background, came from his 4 tours plus Blackwater, but it wasn't enough for me to say, like, this is, I'm pulling out of this. I wanted to and made the effort to try to interview him specifically on that and never got the opportunity to do so, for the record. But if you recall, one of the things that I had said on a Pod Save America podcast was a comparison between Abdullah al-Sayed and Graham Platner. Let me see if I can find it. This was during the Pod Johns conference that I went to, and I think it's important to bring that up right now.
I got to ask you, because we were talking about Nazis in the left and the right versus the left, but like, do you have thoughts on Graham Platner and his tattoo?
Oh my God. I don't even know where to begin with that one. So, Graham Platner is a very unique case, at least from my perspective, because he is a through and through Bernie-crat, right? Like, he is a Bernie hand-selected who was running for office, and right out of the gates, he was like, I'm anti-Israel. I don't think we should be giving weapons to Israel. I don't think we should be doing anything with Israel if they're going to continue doing a genocide, right? Like, and that was a unique position. And then on top of that, he was pro-Medicare for all and numerous other Bernie-style positions. And what was interesting to me about that whole saga is that in spite of him being like very obviously a grunt force, machine gunner for the Marines, which are sometimes known as crayon eaters for good reason, he went on. What the fuck is going on? Did I just get botted? Before leaving Croatia and split, and got the most obvious Nazi tattoo, the third most common Nazi symbol, a Totenkopf, on his chest. In spite of that, Mainer seemingly didn't care about that situation at all. And I think that's a really interesting moment in American politics for where the liberal base is moving.
Yeah.
Because for far too long, I think the organs that work alongside the Democratic Party that are like liberal adjacent or, left adjacent, whatever you want to call it, have often weaponized a version of identity against the left flank, right? While simultaneously telling their audiences that electability actually revolves around moderates. Moderate positions are how you win.
Yeah.
And this is actually a real battle that is still currently taking place within the Democratic Party. The Welcome Pack piece that came out, the Welcome Pack report that came out was, again, another version of this exact same thing. And I don't think liberals are responding to that electability argument, or rather, I think they think now, after failure from the moderates, especially the second failure against Donald Trump, again, an incompetent, monstrous fascist, they realize, like, no, maybe the left flank, left populist position is the actual electability argument, and maybe we were deluded.
Well, but like, okay, so
they're giving a lot of grace to Graham Platner, is what I'm saying.
Well, and I think Graham Platner has handled it basically as well as you can, which is another model of how the left can understand people's flaws and how you can own the mistakes you made in life and how they made you who you are today and arguably a better person. But like, just like, as you say, one of the top 3 Nazi tattoos, like, is that not fucked up? Like, what?
No, I think it is.
I mean, what? So, like, are liberals just becoming more okay with that? And like, is that a problem?
So
I don't know.
There's 2 things that I think about in that regard. I think that we'll see, because we saw it with Zohran Mamdani, right?
Yeah,
like,
and I want to talk to you about
a lot of liberals were very forgiving of like the faucet of misinformation and angry lines of attack that were completely, in my opinion, unjustifiable and outright racist at times. Like the notion that he is like a scary anti-Semite is honestly an incredibly bigotry, like institutionally permissible form of bigotry. The assumption that like he's gonna be anti-Semitic, he's anti-Israel, he's Muslim. Come on, like, and these are very real fears. Like, we don't treat white supremacy in that same vein. Like, if someone were to say, as a white Christian, as many have, right? I think like desegregation is a real problem. I think that I don't want my children to live in a racial jungle. We would be like, okay, that's your problem. Like, you need to deal with that on your own. But in this circumstance, because, you know, Jews are also a marginalized identity in the United States of America, and there is a lot of historic violence towards Jewish people on the virtue of being Jewish, that there is this conversation that takes place where we place a lot of emphasis on whether or not there's this like broad majority of Jewish people that are truly terrified of Zohran Mamdani because he's seemingly or considered to be anti-Semitic. And I think that's genuinely a racist position to apply to someone like Zohran Mamdani. I think it's ridiculous. He's done nothing and said nothing that is even remotely anti-Semitic. And yet
he staked out a position on Gaza that is comports, that is not in favor of what Israel is doing, but that does not mean he is an anti-Semite.
And here, I'll give you an example. Sometimes I like to think about it as like, if Zohran was like a white Christian guy or a Jewish guy, and he was saying that, would these arguments stick?
Yeah.
Would there be this much? I mean, look at Graham Platner. He's a fucking totem pop tattoo.
This is what I'm saying.
And even then, people are like not even making that argument, right?
Give him a pass.
So my point is like, that is institutionalized Islamophobia. There's a big part of it. I don't like to talk about it too much because it's like a lot of people tap out when they hear that and they're like, I don't want to hear this. Oh, whatever. Here we go again. But the reason why I'm saying it here is that, like, we shall see if the liberals are more forgiving of guys like Graham Platner because he's a white dude and they think that is like the primary version of electability for liberals in general.
Yeah.
Or is it because he came out of the gate swinging with very leftist, like left flank policies, and that's the reason why they're forgiving of him. And I think the contest I'm paying close attention to is Abdul El-Sayed, a person who has none of the red flags whatsoever. Another person that basically has an infallible reputation and has actually more experience in politics as well. He's run for the governors. He failed to defeat. I think it was Whitmer that he failed to defeat on a Medicare for All campaign, and he is the real deal, right? And he's also another early Bernie pick. He's also anti-Zionist. We shall see if liberals are just as forgiving of a brown guy that is running on a very similar campaign to Graham Platner without the Nazi tattoo, but he's a brown guy. Does that mean that it's like scarier? My point is a white dude with a Nazi tattoo.
I think we know the answer, don't we?
Well, I
think we know the answer.
No, I don't.
As a brown person, I think I know the answer.
No, I think that's defeatist, and that's I don't abide by that. I recognize that there's a hurdle, right? There's a hurdle. There's a higher threshold, but you can climb it, and you can make up for that higher threshold by instilling messaging discipline, and then not stepping on any landmines to the best of your ability, and also just. Are you proud of yourself for supporting an unrepentant mass murdering rapist? Did you just not watch the video? Did you not hear the words that I literally, even back then, focusing on over and over again. This is November 13th, 2025, before many of you knew even who Abdul El-Sayed was, or were barely learning about Graham Platner, where I say, look, this guy has a lot of red flags, okay? But liberals are seemingly very forgiving of his red flags. Is that because of the populist messaging, or is that because he's a grunt force guy who is, thinking like a woke but acting like a chud, walking like a chud, thinking like a woke? Turns out he wasn't just thinking like a woke either. He was also thinking like a chud. Yeah, this was during the height of the Platner mania. The problem is people will now try to utilize the Graham Platner allegations to imply that like all Bernie crats are this way, okay? To imply that all Bernie crats are like this. Stop acting like you weren't falling for him too. I mean, I told you honestly and sincerely, given the information that was readily available at the time, that regardless of my scrutiny, that he was a far better candidate than Janet Mills, who was pro-Israel, and a far better candidate than Susan Collins, okay? Which is true. And there's also verifiable information. Like, for example, if there was verifiable information from his time at Blackwater, where he opened fire on a civilian car or something, or if there was verifiable information from his time in combat, and it wasn't pure conjecture or pure speculation on what he may or may not have done, right? That would be an entirely different conversation that we're having, or would have been having at the time, okay? Is it possible we see Maine voters shrug it off like before? No, I don't think so. Especially because it comes with a faucet of red flags and heightened tensions from before. I don't think all of those previous allegations actually. I don't think those previous allegations actually make this less credible. I think it makes it more credible. It lends credence to the previous allegations all of a sudden, because this is not just a random accusation with no additional evidence. This is a clear-cut instance of verifiable sexual assault allegations. It's completely irredeemable. Being part of the military is a red line and war criminal of itself, as soldiers are actively part of the institution. The only way that can be supported is repented, and if they've renounced serving and advocate against it. Same with the IDF. Yeah. Okay, that's your standard. I have a different standard, okay? No, being a part of the military is not a fucking red line, dude. And it's the same for IDF as well. I've already said this. It's entirely dependent on how you maneuver this landscape, okay? Yes, I get it, dude. You think everyone that's a part of the American military murdered children personally, directly. They ate the babies. I got it, okay? If we're having a conversation about the institution in and of itself, about anti-imperialism in and of itself, that's an entirely separate conversation. I hate having this back and forth with like 8 to 11 people that maintain this supposedly quote unquote principled stance when we're having a conversation about fucking elections. Okay, please, this is a totally separate conversation. The best possible candidate is always and forever going to be an art history PhD that went and worked at Starbucks and has your background. Suspiciously is identical to your lived experience. We got it. Someone who has spent most of their time reading theory. It's no person who has ever been a part of the American military is ever redeemable. You got it. Thank you. I've literally interviewed people who have served in the IDF, anti-Zionists, now anti-Zionists. And you have too. You just don't know it, okay? If you've ever read, for example, any Israeli new historian, with the exception of Benny Morris, you have read the works of prominent anti-Zionists who served in the fucking Israeli occupying forces. Shut the fuck up, okay? Please. I've never wavered on this principle that someone's past is only indicative of who they are as a person now if it corresponds to their current behavior. The comparison here that I made was between Graham Platner and Abdul al-Sayed all the way back in November 2025, where I had my skepticism, my scrutiny, and still maintained a position that he was far better than Janet Mills, given the positions that we knew. Okay. But what I said at the time was, were people in love with Graham Platner because he's a white guy, or were people in love with Graham Platner because of the policies? That remains to be seen, because the very same people that attack Graham Platner, who are now feeling vindicated, are still attacking Abdul al-Sayed. As a matter of fact, something very strange happened yesterday to one of my prominent haters, Sarah Longwell. I will never support any candidate who proudly campaigns with Hasan Piker, to which Deep responded with, this is an endorsement of Graham Platner. To which she responded with, yes, Graham Platner is better than Abdul al-Sayed. Something along those lines. Shannon was, not Abdul al-Sayed. Probably the worst possible time to come out with an endorsement of Graham Platner over Abdul al-Sayed, a take that will live in infamy. This is what happens when you literally define your worldview off of opposing me on whether or not you think that a candidate, campaigning with someone like myself is indicative of their viability or not. Seems like you're trying to pivot as you never liked him. Didn't we already know he killed Afghan civilians? Seems like you're trying to pivot as you never liked them. No. I was willing to let my scrutiny of his background aside, given that he was far better than both Janet Mills at the time and also Susan Collins. But there is certainly a level of things that you have definitely done that are verifiable and credible that I'm willing to, forego my scrutiny over. And obviously, a verifiable sexual assault allegation goes past that standard. That's it. That's it. What is this? Wow, I love that it has to get to sexual assault for him to not be viable. Yes, of course. What are you talking about? You think that's not a significant accusation? If there was a significant accusation that was verifiable of a fucking direct war crime, then that would also be, again, relevant. I suspect that Graham Platner betrayed the trust of a lot of people, including probably the Sanders wing, Ro Khanna. If you have corroboration, if you've talked to a therapist about it, and you have like any evidence that you can point to, if you've talked to a friend about it at the time, that is the hallmark of a reliable allegation. That even lends credence to other accusations. Because one of the things that we went through the Me Too era, right? Believe women does not mean women are incapable of lying. Believe women means don't reflexively disbelieve women. And there are certain things that you can look at in an accusation that lends credence to it. It's impossible to overlook, okay? The messages of him, like him being a dog or whatever, like him fucking around, talking to other women, all of that stuff is, it shows that someone is of not the highest moral character, but that's things that, that you can add on and people can make a decision on whether or not that means that this person has the best mindset or not. But this is something beyond that. Okay. I also wanted to interview Graham Platner. I wanted to hear his own perspective in his own words early on, given the questions that I had about his background, about his perspective, and their campaign shied away from it. Their campaign shied away from it when they saw some of the things that I had said. And I was very open about it. I told you guys at the time. That doesn't mean I'm going to fucking lie to you and say that Graham Platner is not a better candidate than Janet Mills or a better candidate than Susan Collins before all of this new information came out. Suck my dick. I think part of it was because they thought that I would, hound them on certain things that they consider to be a weakness on the left flank. They didn't want any scrutiny from the left. One of the problems with this, the Bernie endorsement is that they're going to use this as an opportunity to fuck Bernie up, dude. They are going to beat the shit out of Bernie for this, which I don't think is appropriate. I don't think it's acceptable. I think it's unacceptable. But I think the establishment Democrats are going to use this as an opportunity. I mean, they're already fucking attacking me. And my level of involvement with Platner is non-existent. And they're fucking making it seem like I was the one who found him out of nowhere. I do wonder if there will be some Platner dead enders. The commentary and political Twitter response has been overwhelmingly pro-dropout, but his Instagram and Facebook comments, which are much more normie, are still backing him. No, that's precisely the reason why it has to be a left populist that replaces him. That's precisely the reason why. Because if it's not like Graham Platner style candidate without the red flags and the rape allegation, people are going to be like, no, I'm not voting for anybody. It's over. And I need Democrats to understand that. A lot of people in Maine loved Graham Platner for that reason. Not because he was a Blackwater mercenary, not because he was a fucking soldier, not because of any of that shit. They loved what he represented. So you need to absolutely captivate the same populist energy, okay? And if you don't, if you think this is your opportunity, Democrats, to put forward Pill's Mafia, Janet Mills, who is the governor of the state, and she lost by insane margins to Graham Platner and had to drop out already in this primary. If you think that this is an opportunity to slam in a cookie cutter neoliberal or even someone who is a moderately progressive candidate, you are wrong. We will lose the Senate majority. You got to have someone who is as anti-Israel as Platner is. You got to have someone who's pro-Medicare for all, Bernie back. That's why Troy Jackson seems like a perfect substitute, because here's the situation. This is not a they go low, we go lower type situation. No, it's not. Listen to me. The Senate majority is profoundly important. It's profoundly important to make sure that there is some semblance, a crumb of accountability, a gumming up of the works of the Trump administration's bouldering towards fascism. It's unbelievably important, and you have to unseat Susan Collins. They are going to want a substitute that is similar without the rape allegations. That substitute seems to me to be Troy Jackson. Harm reduction narratives are not going to work to carry a hand-selected establishment Democrat across the finish line. There is far too much populist rage in Maine, so much so that they straight up voted for Graham Platner regardless of the red flags ahead of time, okay? And they voted in large numbers. I am very worried. Here's Troy Jackson's candidacy for governor.
To the stage, the next governor of the state of Maine, Troy Jackson.
I'll be all around in the dark. I'll be everywhere, wherever you look. Wherever there's a fight, so hungry people can eat, I'll be there. Wherever there's a cop beating up a guy, I'll be there. I'll be in the way guys yell when they're mad. And I'll be in the way kids laugh when they're hungry and they know supper's ready. And when our folks eat the stuff they raise and live in the houses they build, I'll be there.
We can't afford to wait any longer. Our time is now. We're not from the left. We're not from the right. We're from the bottom. And finally we're right.
Yeah, this is the Maine Senate polling. Jackson versus Collins matchup 48-43. Collins versus Platner. This is July 6th by Wedgwood. I don't know how reliable this poll is, but Collins 50-50 with Pill's Mafia. 50-46 with Platner, 48-43 with Jackson. Isn't it weird that there wasn't this level of outrage from people like Shannon Watson, Neera Tanden, and Eric Swalwell? I wonder why. Yeah, because for the record, Neera Tanden is a massive Clinton booster. She worked with the Clintons her whole life. Okay? They don't give a shit about allegations if it's their guy. We care about it, right? They don't have any consistency. Get the hell out of here. What are we doing? They rode for Andrew Cuomo against Zoran Mamdani. Here's another thing that we found out, okay? You know how we found out that, there is no like real viable constituency of anti-Israel, anti-war sentiment on the right? You know how like simply being anti-Israel is not going to carry to a victory if Donald Trump is against you? as we saw with the Thomas Massey equation. There is no liberal Trump, at least for the time being, because this is the liberal Trump moment. And the liberal voters, in my opinion, will probably crater in their support for Graham Platner after this accusation. Turns out you can't have a serious rape accusation as a liberal that is also an outsider too, when the institutions are not defending you, when the institutions have their knives out for you anyway. You're not going to be able to pull a Trump. Okay? You're not going to be able to pull a Trump, which I don't think is a bad thing, for the record. I just want to state my position on this. It's not a bad... Is it even fair to say that someone should have known this would happen? I mean, the only people I think that should have known this would happen were the people who did not sufficiently and thoroughly investigate Graham Platner's background. I don't see any reason why people try to make it seem as though, like, Graham Platner was not an effective communicator. I don't know why people... make this argument for some reason. Like, he, as I've said time and time again, regardless of skepticism or scrutiny, very clearly was connecting with Maine voters. And the reason why he was able to do that is because he was a very effective communicator. That's it. Yeah, coming out of the gate swinging with a Bernie endorsement day one, obviously frame one also helped him. But guess what, guys? It didn't help him as much as it helped, or it didn't help Abdul El-Sayed in the same way. This was always a tale of two races from my perspective. Abdul El-Sayed also started early. Abdul El-Sayed also started frame one with a Bernie endorsement. And yet Abdul El-Sayed did not get the national attention until Haley Stevens and Mallory McMorrow, more importantly than Haley Stevens, came out and started yelling at Abdul El-Sayed because he had made the... At the time, they thought it was an unwise decision. Turns out it was a very wise decision. Made the decision to campaign alongside a dangerous radical like myself. That's when that campaign became a national campaign. That's when people started paying close attention to Abdul El-Sayed. So why is it that Abdul El-Sayed did not get that national recognition? That is ironically what FD Signifier was pointing to. Is Abdul not charismatic? Of course he is. And on top of that, he had the background. He had the experience. So why did he not get the same recognition? Two candidates, two Senate races, two candidates, two Senate races. What gives? He is no Platner in regards to charisma. I think you're wrong. Are you kidding me? He's great. Have you listened to his stump speech? It's fantastic. It's just as exciting as Graham Platner's is. I think a large part of Platner's success in the primary, beyond expressing what his mainstream Dem view on Gaza, was holding town halls, laying out his views, and answering questions after questions. It's rare for polls to do that. He did that 80 plus. Agreed. But so did Abdul. So why was Abdul's chances nowhere near as good as Graham Platner's was? I think it's because a lot of people don't pay attention to radical candidates that embody that carry that populist rage in their attitude, in their policy, when those candidates aren't white guys. It's true. Everyone has taken this credible rape accusation and has used it to pull out their I told you so's back and forth, when no one, for some fucking weird reason, one, understands the significance of this, the significance of this problem, right, for the Senate majority, because the Senate majority means investigations, accountability, hurdles in front of the Trump administration, right? Like that's an absolute necessity. I cannot stress this enough. And the other problem is that if you don't recognize what forces gave Graham Platner his national prominence, if you simply think it's like, you know, leftist Carhartt wearing phonies who know what the working class truly is, if you think that that's the case, then you're failing to comprehend the hundreds of thousands of Mainers that voted for him from not that background, right? It's incredibly stupid. All that remains for Graham Platner is to make the reasonable and considerate choice and not follow his own short-sighted, selfish desires. Imagine getting rid of your Nazi tattoo for nothing. Bro's probably pissed. He's like, dude, that's my emotional support Nazi tattoo, you fucking asshole. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Look, it doesn't matter. This is not about Graham Platner, right? He's out. That's clear. But if the Democrats come in and they're like, well, it's Janet Mills time, I cannot begin to explain to you how bad that will be, because it'll be a twofer. One, A lot of people that voted for Graham Platner will not vote for Janet Mills because they voted against Janet Mills. They voted for Graham Platner. FD will attest to this, both in private correspondence, but also my public statements that like I always hedged my Graham Platner commentary with his red flags. But, you know, there were definitely a lot of people that were very excited about how charismatic he presented himself as.
And when you're not a straight white male,
like you've been glazing Platner for months. If there is no difference in my commentary on Graham Platner versus what I've said and what I've done for Daria Liza, Chris Rabb, Claire Valdez, Adam Hamawi, Abdul Al Sayed, why have I been doing any of this? Why have I been doing any of this? You hedge, but come on, man. But like, why have I been doing any of this shit? Did you see the same level of excitement, the same level of support that any number of different people received? Or was it just me arguing against chatters like yourself that would sometimes make very stupid comparisons? Like, oh, well, why not Kamala Harris then? What did I tell you? If Kamala Harris had the same platform as Graham Platner, she would have won, okay? And yes, I would have door knocked for her. Like I said, if Kamala Harris came out swinging against Israel's genocide, what did I tell you? I was like, it's too significant of a race to just ignore. I don't think Platner's popularity up here is due to his Israel take as much as it's due to his healthcare take. No, I agree. For sure.
Debs here exemplified the way in which even radical white people who called for a working class revolution against capitalism could simultaneously distance themselves from the specific challenges facing the most oppressed segment of the working class. I'm bringing this up because I want to show that this is an infinite loop at this point. White leftists with little to no racial analytical frame can't help but center their sensibilities even in the face of obvious red flags. Or
This is 100% accurate. Okay? It's true. What do I always say? There is no path to socialism, to developing socialism in this country without black socialism. Capital B, black socialism. Straight up.
The red flags that he has don't bother some of y'all because those red flags have never been weaponized against you. But when you're someone who's historically been targeted by this archetype, you pay attention to those patterns. You don't compromise with that. For reasons I won't get into, I've had to spend the last few weeks arguing that normalizing Nazi terminology, but wokely, is bad and that no one on the left should be doing it. And I've had some, not many, I want to be clear, but plenty of white leftists try to argue that nobody cares about Nazis, as if a couple of Nazis didn't just shoot up a mosque in San Diego just a few weeks ago, or the fact that that exact type of Nazi.
Why are we watching this victim mentality? Dog, come on. Come on. You are playing the stereotype, man. This is not victim mentality. This is critical analysis. And also, it's correct. Like, this is the moment of vindication for FD Signifier. It's kind of ridiculous to still double down on your blind spot instead of just being like, you know what, maybe this is a good opportunity to reconsider some of the biases that I might have. It's not an accident that the people that were far more critical of Graham Platner were people like FD Signifier, Sean the Black, Chris Rabb, okay? Even AOC shied away from an endorsement. And if you recall, there were a lot of people who were yelling at Chris Rabb when Chris did that interview with Crystal Ball. And I had to come in with a little bit of course correction even in this community where I said, look, Chris Rabb, as opposed to Graham Platner, is someone who I have lent support to, who I have actually, gone and campaigned with and put the weight of this community behind. And there's a reason for that. Okay. Like, his skepticism turned out to be correct. My limited amount of skepticism was not correct. Notwithstanding the conversations about broader issues about like how, veterans are this or that. I'm not having that conversation right now, even though many people will take those conversations, will slam it in, or even what kind of attacks you receive if you come out as someone who is critical of Israel. Zay Squirrel also immediately was like, this guy's a no good candidate and is bad, Blackwater mercenary. But even Zay Squirrel, alongside myself, had the same exact assessment with the New York Times report, where they also said the same thing I did, that this kind of feels like a hit job. It turns out that there was a lot more evidence that the New York Times did not report on for one reason or another. It's remarkable that they did not report on those reasons and simply left the assessment of this allegation as someone who had one weird moment with Graham Platner, but ultimately was fine with Graham Platner. It turns out she wasn't fine with that. Don't throw a Majority Report under the bus. I'm never going to throw a Majority Report under the bus. I'm not going to throw Kyle Kulinski under the bus. I think it's important to recognize blind spots, myself included. Having said that, I totally understand why they were in support. A lot of these people that were in support of Graham Platner were also in support of Kamala Harris in ways that were far more meaningful than, my assessment of that race, right? They were doing harm reduction and lesser evil voting arguments. This is consistent with their principle. If someone is going to do harm reduction arguments for Kamala Harris, then of course they're going to make, of course they're going to be in the tank for Graham Platner. FD was in support of Kamala too. Yeah. Did you not hear him literally also do? Yes. FD Signifier is also a harm reductionist. Okay. He literally said, look, you're going to vote for Graham Platner. Just don't make him the face of the movement. That's all he's saying. The nuanced criticism here. He is quite literally saying, look, if you're going to vote for Graham Platner, that's fine. But there's obviously a lot of red flags and you shouldn't make him the face of a movement. You shouldn't be giving him this much coverage. You know what I mean? I think you didn't go as hard on him as the same reason people get scammed because you wanted it to be true. Of course I wanted him to be the base, commie former veteran that is anti-imperialist, but he's hiding how radical he is. Turns out he was hiding his real experiences, just not in the direction that I hoped he was. But once again, the skepticism still remained. It was something that I wanted to make a personal assessment on. And unfortunately, well, I guess not even unfortunately, I guess I fortunately never had the opportunity to do so, especially considering, holy shit, the amount of cooking that I'd be receiving in this circumstance probably be even harder than that, regardless of the fact that I didn't lend him the same level of support at all. Let's be real. There are a shit ton of content creators. I'm not going to name any names. Okay. There are a shit ton of content creators who almost entirely focus on drama, and they simply add a little bit of political shine to it to make it seem like there are, serious political disagreements here. And this is a serious advocacy. And these are very important disagreements that must be addressed, when in fact, all they're doing is shit stirring, lying about, the background of individuals, and adding a good deal of, click chasing and clickbaiting into the process. Okay. I will stand by the notion that I have over and over again, that I've repeated over and over again. Graham Platner is not a product of the online left. Graham Platner was hand selected by, I guess, the fight agency. But having said that, what made Graham Platner popular was not the online left. The online left, Majority Report, myself, if you consider me to be a major booster of Graham Platner, Pod Johns, these people have a lot of influence, but they cannot make or break elections, no matter how big or small. Graham Platner became a national figure because people in Maine voted for him. Liberals in Maine voted for him. And this is very important to identify and understand. That is who voted for Graham Platner, and that's who might even still to this day want Graham Platner to remain in the race. Okay? I don't think Graham Platner was carried into victory by bread tubers or Majority Report or myself or any number of different people, right? Unless you personally think, like, if your argument is, Hasan, you've done Graham Platner, you're the reason why Graham Platner ran, you're the reason why this issue is happening, you found him, you hand selected him, you work for the fight agency, whatever, right? If that's like your assessment, and there are some who are maybe leaning into that direction a little bit, do you think I have, or do you think Majority Report has captivated the minds of every 65-plus-year-old college-educated white suburbanite in Maine? Do you think that's the reason why Graham Platner is successful? Because they were all locked in on the Majority Report. Or do you think that there was genuine momentum behind his candidacy at a time when people were looking for someone to express their left populist rage? The reason why this is very important to identify is because the replacement has to, in some way, shape, or form, embody that left populist rage. Because if that doesn't happen, a lot of people are going to be very frustrated and they're not going to vote, and they're going to think, oh, they fucked him. And I think that there are a lot of people in Maine that probably don't even want him to drop out. On Twitter, everyone's like, Graham Platner, you got to drop out. On Blue Sky, they're doing victory laps, okay? On Instagram, on Facebook, where the normies are, they love Graham. On TikTok comments, people are saying, you shouldn't drop out, King. This is an Israel concocted narrative. Politicians are calling him to drop out, but the voters are saying, remain in the race, King. Okay? That's important. That's important to understand. That's important to identify. I'm not saying this is correct. I'm not saying this is good. This is the true liberal Trump. Okay? This is the true liberal Trumpian candidacy that we have to take note. We have to take note of where the success came from. And we have to factor that into who the replacement should be. I don't like how Hasan is framing the situation as the online left has no responsibility in platforming Platner in a positive way, regardless of how Maine voters voted. It's just a lack of accountability. It's my least favorite statement. It's my least favorite word. And I know people will clip this and be like, oh, yeah, see, he hates accountability. It just doesn't mean anything. Okay? It just doesn't mean anything. Like, what do you mean? I say it too at times. But like, what does it mean? What would accountability look like? Like, what would you want me to do? What would you want, I don't know, like Majority Report to do? Because I saw pieces of Emma's takes earlier where she did hold herself accountable. Like, she said, look, I apologize. I was duped by this person to a certain degree. I really pushed for this person. But like in my situation, it's like, what do you want me to not cover the Maine Senate race at all? Calling out the Nazi tattoo? Why did so many people minimize that? Wait, but I did do that. So what? I did numerous tweets, numerous extensive hours of coverage. So what do you want me to do about that? I think for a lot of people, it basically turns into like this whole thing where it's like, I want you to satisfy my needs. Like, I'm watching this video because there were red flags that I myself also overlooked in terms of in an effort to maintain some kind of like stable left populist momentum. Not overlooked necessarily, because I did bring them up, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, F this guy. And if you're asking me to say F this guy when the alternative was Susan Collins or Janet Mills, I wasn't going to do that, right? There is a level of buildup that we had to reach for me to say that. There's a level of like accusation pile on, especially where it's coming from is also important, because a lot of these accusations weren't just coming from the anti-imperialist left flank, some of the ultras in this community, some of the wreckers in this community who were actually saying unhinged things, as opposed to like reasonable critique.
I just want you to think about like what you would do as a regular person in a position where a much larger world, large forces were working against you personally to accuse you of the worst thing that a person could do, and it was not remotely true. I learned about this through press inquiries, with no time to truly respond, no time for investigations before a corporate media system and the political establishment got to act as judge, jury, and executioner.
Is he saying Republicans did this? No, I think he's saying this is Israel. Like, he's implying that it's Israel doing this. What the f?
What we have accomplished here, you made possible. The people of Maine, the volunteers, the voters, the grassroots donors, and I have all the faith in the world that we could win if we could continue to harness that. But the brutal political reality is that they are going to take everything away from us. Those in power who have the ability to do so are using these allegations as an excuse to take away all of the things that we need to run a campaign.
Yeah, I think he's saying the Democrats did this. Like, the Democratic establishment did this. Like, they pulled this last second, right before the date, you know, like leaning into a lot of the pre-existing conspiracies given the timing of it. So far, I don't know if he's denying it because he is also in legal trouble. Because here's the thing. This accusation is a criminal accusation, and one that actually has plenty, if the political reporting is correct, there's no reason for me to believe it's not. There's already enough evidence to convict in court. And the victim has until like 2041, because it was 2021, so 20-year statute of limitations. So she has until 2041. Yeah. Not convict. Sorry, I should have said charge. It is hard to prosecute, but definitely enough to charge.
Decisions should not be made in back rooms by people in places of political power.
Spoiler alert, he dropped out at the end of this. I'm trying to understand why he's saying all this stuff, though.
Sat down and we looked at each other and we said, if we believe in the kind of politics we think that we do.
So here's the thing. The reason why he went this like long and convoluted route, I suspect, is to, one, say that he's getting over by the establishment Democrats, so that there is like still a decent amount of anger towards the establishment Democrats. Oh God, the Democrats, man. Oh no, everything is so up, dude, because he's suspending his campaign. There's still going to be a lot of palpable rage towards the establishment. There are going to be people that, especially after his denials, the people that love him, that voted for him, are just and don't care about women at all, including women, by the way, are going to literally say, oh, this, like, you cooked our boy. And not only that, but then the Maine Democratic Party is not doing like any sort of open electoral process here, and instead are using a 600+ person nominating convention to replace Graham Platner. This is devastating. I think this still helps Troy Jackson, ironically enough, depending on who's actually going to be a part of the nomination system, like the nominating convention. Even if it was literally like a populist figure, I think people are still going to be pissed off because they had no say in it. It's crazy.
And keep fighting. We're going to win someday.
Okay, so he came out with this. He starts off with a denial, which is, again, it's ridiculous. Like, any kind of denial that points to a grander conspiracy needs to have paperwork associated with it. You know what I mean? And then I think Platner's like dropout take is an atom bomb. He concocted the perfect statement that is designed to get a lot of his fans, a lot of his voters, to feel slighted, to feel frustrated. It was a face-saving operation for himself, narcissistic through and through, all the way to the bitter end. And the consequences of that are going to be unbelievable. Niall Stanage says, Graham Platner announced just moments ago he's ending Senate bids. Argued just hours before there's a huge distinction between Platner personally, under grave suspicion and discredited. The ideas he ran on, popular, not at all discredited. I agree with this assessment. I have been saying this exact same thing. People see that as an endorsement of Graham Platner, the person, and not the platform, for some weird reason. I find it crazy that he just came out and did a face-saving operation. Like, I know he's narcissistic, obviously. You got to be narcissistic if you have that kind of a background. You got to Nazi tattoo on your chest and you chose to run. But I didn't think that he would try to even refuse to fall on a sword almost. That was more so for his base, was it not? Yeah, but it was to fire up the base in a direction that is unproductive if he cares about, in any way, shape, or form, maintaining the Senate majority. Genuinely, though, your take makes no sense. Like, what's the guy going to say? Yeah, I raped that woman and now my support should support Troy Jackson. Actually present, that would have been the right. No, he should have said, I've let all of you down. I had far too much baggage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I could make some changes and I let all of you down. I let the 15,000 of you that worked on this campaign down. I let the 150,000 of you that voted for me down. And most of all, I let this person down. I'm criticizing what he said. I'm saying that there's an even better way to like engage in a face-saving operation for himself without assuming any legal liability while simultaneously not lighting the race on fire. What the hell is going on? He could just be like, look, it's just this has become a major distraction that's taken away. You're literally just being unrealistic, Law. He should have never been there in the first place. Yeah, no shit, you idiot. Do you think I disagree with that statement? The f***'s wrong with you? That's not the world we live in now, is it? Some of y'all are genuinely medically stupid, brother. You know what else I wish? I wish that a figure not dissimilar to Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was running in every state. Wouldn't that be nice? I wish that every American was born with a copy of Das Kapital downloaded in their consciousness. Wouldn't that be great? I wish every American understood their class position automatically. Wouldn't that be great? But that's not the world we live in, is it? The is wrong with you? You think you're making a coherent point? What do you mean? Oh, I should have never been there. Yeah, no shit, dude. You did it. What a great point, dog. He mathematically delivered, in my opinion, one of the worst things he could have delivered as a concession, as a suspension speech, because he's just going to galvanize the people that are in his base of support into thinking that he got over, he got rat, and then they're just never going to vote for anybody else. Okay. So if your goal is a better, charting a better future in any way, shape, or form, if you weren't going to go out like the narcissist that you are, you're supposed to eat it. Like, what are we doing? No one wants to win. I feel like I'm the last who cares about maintaining a Senate majority. What the is going on? What is happening? Bourgeois democracy. Electoralism. I swear to God, it's so. I dipped my little toes into it for half of a goddamn year during the midterms, and I cannot believe it. Democratic centralism is the only way to go forward. I am genuinely, look, I'm invested in making sure that Democrats maintain a Senate majority. Okay. And the Maine seat is pivotal for the Democrats to get a Senate majority. Okay. And clearly, in order for this process to take place, you have to ensure that there's not enough voter apathy. You have to ensure that there isn't so much voter apathy that the general election is cooked. Okay. That's precisely the reason why I'm talking not about Graham Platner, the person, but about this movement and what people voted for. Okay. That's it. That's something to pay close attention to. And it's very strange that a lot of people are not paying attention to it. They're just talking about Graham Platner. They're not talking about the people that voted for him and how they feel right now, especially considering that their feelings are going to be quite important because you cannot hemorrhage any support if you want to defeat Susan Collins. He has no leverage. No, that's not true. He does have leverage. He could just stay in. Do you understand how much leverage there is right now in his hands? He could just be like, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to drop out. And then what? That's crazy. I mean, he could just cook this entire thing. He could destroy this entire process. Like we're hoping that he does the right thing. Okay, well, the doing the right thing would have been not running for this position. That would have been doing the right thing, right? Doing the right thing would have been, hey, I got some weird stuff in my background. Take a look in the vetting process, which hopefully would have caused the people to say, yeah, we're not going to go with you. We're going to go with someone else.